It turned out that nothing had changed at all. Facing his 1,000 wild sand-bursting fists, unless it was an expert who was much stronger than him, who could use brute force to break through it. Other than that, any shortcuts were suicidal. No matter how good one's movement technique was, could one completely avoid so many wild sand and fierce currents? Even if one could avoid it for a while, could one avoid it forever? After all, this was the arena. There was only so much space to dodge. Being surrounded by so many wild sand and fierce currents, it was inevitable that one would fall into the sand whirlpool. Lin Yi's previous encounter was a living example. This time was no exception. Lin Yi seemed to be unaware of this and was still trying his best to dodge because he had experienced it last time. This time, he was obviously more skilled in dodging, and he managed to hold on in the black sand for a longer time. Unfortunately, all of this was in vain. In the midst of Wu Baoliang's cackling, Lin Yi was once again trapped in the sand whirlpool. According to the previous experience, the biggest crisis would come next, and this time, Wu Baoliang did not have the slightest intention of holding back. Go to hell. Explode. Wu Baoliang suddenly shouted coldly, and the sand whirlpool that surrounded Lin Yi suddenly froze. It was as if time had suddenly stopped, and then every grain of sand began to tremble rapidly, rushing to explode one after another. Lin Yi had personally experienced that the power of every grain of sand that exploded here was comparable to the power of high explosives in the secular world. At this moment, there were more than thousands of grains of sand that exploded. From this point alone, the name 1,000 Wild Sand Explosive Fist was already very modest and low-key. The continuous loud bangs once again shocked the nerves of everyone present. They were all looking forward to the scene of Lin Yi being blasted out again, and those who had a little sympathy had already begun to mourn for Lin Yi. However, as expected, Lin Yi's figure did not enter their field of vision for a long time. The crowd could not help but discuss among themselves. From the looks of it, this time was even more miserable than the last time, and there should be no bones left. However, at this moment, above the arena that was shrouded by the black sand, a huge flame suddenly soared into the sky. In an instant, the entire arena was illuminated, and everyone could not help but be dazzled. What was going on? Everyone could not help but look at each other, and at this moment, Wu Baoliang's expression suddenly changed. Something was wrong. Damn it, he's not dead? Wu Baoliang finally realized something, and his expression instantly became extremely ugly. Without hesitation, he manipulated the black gas to sweep up the yellow sand in the sky, and the 1,000 Wild Sand Explosive Fist surged up violently again, charging straight at the center of the huge flame. The loud bangs continued, and the earth shook and the mountains shook. The entire Demon Cold Plaza seemed to be shrouded by a natural disaster. For a moment, everyone's expression changed drastically, and they were in a panic. No one knew what was going on in the arena, but a few people with good eyesight, such as Qi Mingyuan, Boundless Sea, and Zhao Shanying, could already guess that Lin Yi would not be defeated easily like last time, and was about to launch a counterattack. As expected, the black sand that Wu Baoliang stirred up was no longer unstoppable. It was forcefully blocked by the huge flame, and could not advance even half a step. That was not all. At this time, the huge flame was still growing at an extremely fast speed. In a short period of time, it had already occupied half of the arena with Wu Baoliang's black sand, and they were evenly matched. This time, Wu Baoliang finally turned pale with fright. In the huge flame opposite him, he suddenly saw the faintly discernible figure of Lin Yi. He was as dazzling as the fire god who had descended to the world, and people could not help but feel awe. This scene was seen by Wu Baoliang, and so did everyone in the arena. They immediately exclaimed in shock, and there was an uproar. They were extremely shocked. Chapter 4476. Under the illumination of this huge ball of fire, Wu Baoliang, who was originally hidden in the black sand, was vaguely revealed. For the first time, the audience could see the true faces of the two fighters with their naked eyes. Half of the black sand, and the other half was filled with fire. This was the scene in the arena at this moment. The shock and huge pressure it brought to the audience made them speechless for a long time. In the face of such an astonishing power, not to mention the Golden Core experts, even the nascent soul experts couldn't conceal the shock on their faces. Their hearts couldn't help but be drenched in cold sweat. If they were to stand in the arena, whether it was Wu Baoyang or Lin Yi, they would not be able to withstand it, and they might even lose their lives. At this moment, everyone had the same question in their hearts. Were these two abnormal guys in the arena really Golden Core stage masters? Had the world gone mad? It's the same move? Zhao Shanning, who was in the audience, suddenly felt a little dazed. At the same time, Qi Mingyuan, Boundless Sea, and the others on the referee team also saw it. Although the two sides of the arena looked completely different at first glance, if one observed carefully, they would find that the moves of both sides were actually the same. Even if they were not exactly the same, they must be from the same source. If one had to describe it specifically, it could be considered as two versions of the same move. The people in the audience who saw the clues were only shocked, but Wu Baoyang himself, at this moment, was already in a state of shock. He was about to go crazy. How is this possible? How can this kid also know Thousand Wild Sand Fist? At most, others were just guessing, but Wu Baoyang himself could feel it clearly. The move used by the kid opposite him was clearly a copy of his Thousand Wild Sand Fist. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Wu Baoyang would never believe that there was such a thing in the world. The kid opposite him had just lost to his Thousand Wild Sand Fist half an hour ago, but now, he actually used a copy of the Thousand Wild Sand Fist with just a turn of his head. Most importantly, this wasn't just an act. The other party was actually able to stand on equal footing with him. Anyone would go crazy if this happened to them. Paying someone back in their own coin was just a legend circulating in the martial arts world. It was simply impossible for it to happen to cultivators, and it was even more impossible for it to happen on this heaven stage island. In the past, if anyone threw out this kind of argument, the only result was that they would be regarded as a madman and drowned in the countless spit of the people around them. But now, Lin Yi had given it to Wu Baoyang. Everyone at the scene had also learned a lesson. They had no choice but to re-examine the old saying, there is always someone better than you out there. Luckily, I didn't guess wrong. Otherwise, I'd be in big trouble this time. Lin Yi, who was in the middle of the huge firelight, let out a long sigh of relief. His heart was filled with excitement. To be honest, although he had deduced and assembled it countless times in his mind, it was not until just now. Lin Yi still had no idea whether he could successfully cast it or not. After all, he had never seen a similar move before. Even if he wanted to learn from it, it would not be so easy. Previously, Lin Yi only needed to try to imitate the 8 trigrams fire palm, 1,000 flaming kicks, and other martial arts skills. Basically, he could do it with ease. 70% of it was imitation, and 30% of it was self-creation. But this time, the 1,000 flaming sand fist was different. Whether it was Wu Baoyang's black gas or the sand, Lin Yi could not completely imitate it. Even Lin Yi couldn't replicate it completely. Other than the core essence of the move, he had to improvise everything else on the spot. This difficulty was as high as ascending to the sky. But fortunately, the strong foundation of the 5 elements and 7 attributes was not just for show. Coupled with his strong creativity, and the fact that he deliberately did not directly make a move just now. Instead, he once again stood in the black gas and sand to observe and feel. After verifying his guess, Lin Yi finally successfully cast the 1,000 flaming sand fist. Of course, after changing its appearance like this move could no longer be regarded as a pure 1,000 flaming sand fist. Lin Yi decided to change it to a more appropriate name, 1,000 flaming sand fist. Wu Baoyang watched helplessly as his opponent's aura became stronger and stronger, and the giant flames occupied more and more of the arena. He could no longer hold back. If this continued, his authentic 1,000 wild sand burst fist might really be defeated by his opponent's imitation. Pretentious, it must be pretentious. Wu Baoliang suddenly laughed hysterically. His blurry figure shrouded in the black gas and sand became more and more strange. He roared loudly, "You fool, even if you can imitate it, so what? It's just a facade. Do you think you can scare me like this? TSK, you don't understand the essence of the thousand flaming sand fist at all. How dare you use such a lousy move to fight with me? You're hopelessly stupid." Everyone in the arena could not help but frown when they heard this. Although Lin Yi's sudden move was indeed shocking, they still thought that Wu Baoliang had a higher chance of winning. After all, this was the authentic original version. If they really fought, there was no reason for him to lose to a temporary imitation. However, now that they saw Wu Baoliang's hysterical appearance, everyone quietly changed their opinion. In a battle between masters, it was a taboo to be impatient. It didn't matter if Lin Yi knew this move from the start or if he was just imitating it. It didn't matter if he had truly grasped the essence of it. At least from the point of Wu Baoliang panicking, Lin Yi clearly had the upper hand. Just as everyone was discussing, Wu Baoliang's crazy laughter came from the arena again. "Since you want to imitate, then I'll be merciful and teach you what the essence of the thousand flaming sand fist is." Explode. Accompanied by Wu Baoliang's maniacal laughter, a familiar loud bang once again exploded out of nowhere in the arena. As he did not hold back this time, the arena, which had been set up with layers of powerful defensive formations, could not withstand it. Cracks that were visible to the naked eye appeared on the arena, and they rapidly expanded, covering the entire arena. Full power, thousand flaming sand fist. This was the true essence of the thousand flaming sand fist. Even though Lin Yi imitated it so well, Wu Baoliang did not believe that Lin Yi could really master this most important essence. After all, this was not an ordinary method. Not only did he need to master the key tricks, but he also had to go through special training. He had to train hard for at least a few decades to reach a sufficient level of mastery before he could be sure of success. Chapter 4477. All living things annihilation was the martial skill that Wu Baoliang had been practicing ever since he started his cultivation. The principle was to let all the objects within the range of his control collide and kill each other. This was the prerequisite for practicing the thousand violent sand fist. This was because the violent sand thousand bursting fist's final thousand heavy explosions was the most crucial step in controlling the thousands of grains of devil chi to collide with each other, producing an astonishing power. The angle, position, speed, and strength must all be perfectly grasped. If there was a mistake in any of these steps, it would lead to failure. The difficulty of this was imaginable. Wu Baoliang believed that his cultivation talent was extremely high, but even he had to practice for decades before he barely grasped the trick. Only then could he successfully practice such a shocking move like the thousand explosive sand fist. Anyone, even the most talented genius, wanting to master the violent sand thousand bursting fist in one go was just a pipe dream. It was absolutely impossible. However, Lin Yi's shout came from the giant flame, and it instantly overturned Wu Baoliang's outlook on life. This guy even imitated this step, explode. As soon as Lin Yi's voice fell, endless explosions came from the giant flame at the same time. Its power was so shocking that it was even more powerful than Wu Baoliang's original version. At this moment, the black sand and the giant flame exploded at the same time. The aftermath and airwaves produced by the collision of the two sides instantly swept through the entire Demonling Square. A large number of spectators who could not stand steadily were forcibly sent flying. The scene was extremely chaotic. At the same time, accompanied by a cracking sound, the ring that was meticulously reinforced by multiple layers of protective arrays actually collapsed directly and became a pile of ruins. The audience was in an uproar. It was not because the arena had collapsed, but because the winner of the duel had finally been decided. Wu Baoliang's black sand could not withstand the soaring flame that was growing stronger and stronger. In the blink of an eye, it was like a landslide, and it was directly engulfed into nothingness. Impossible. No. Wu Baoliang could not even finish his sentence before he was blasted away by the strong impact of the soaring flames. He fell hundreds of feet away, and his entire body was charred black. He was in an indescribably miserable state. After a while, the dazzling fire gradually dissipated, and Lin Yi's figure slowly appeared in the ruins of the arena. In the afterglow of the light, it was as if the god of fire had descended to the world. Perhaps it was because he had just used the raging flame thousand bursts fist. At this moment, Lin Yi's aura was no longer as calm and collected as before. Instead, it had become extremely fierce and domineering. Even someone like Boundless Sea didn't dare to look him in the eye. He was simply too domineering. I hereby announce that the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency has won. You may now challenge your next opponent. Amidst the silence, the referee was the first to react and announce the result. Only then did everyone recover from the shock, and their faces were full of colorful expressions. Especially Cheng Haonan, Long Kiba, and Boundless Sea. These guys who thought that Wu Baoyang could definitely defeat Lin Yi had ugly expressions on their faces, and they could not say a word for a long time. Meanwhile, Qi Wenhan and the others instantly burst into thunderous cheers. Before Lin Yi went on stage again, they were already prepared to face defeat. In their eyes, as long as nothing happened to Lin Yi, this would be considered a success. Who would have thought that Lin Yi would be so heaven-defying? He actually used his opponent's finishing move to forcibly defeat his opponent. Lin Yi stood in the ruins of the arena, and his gaze slowly fell on Wu Baoyang. Although this guy was blasted away and looked quite miserable, he was far from being seriously injured to the point of death. Against a heartless person like Wu Baoyang, Lin Yi clearly had no intention of holding back. However, this was his first time using the Raging Flame Thousand Bursts fist. It was already good enough that he could successfully execute it, but he still could not completely control this newly created move. Whether it was power or timing, he was still lacking. What a pity. Lin Yi shook his head faintly. It was a bit of a shame that he wasn't able to kill the guy in one go, but it wasn't a big deal. He turned to the judges and spoke up. I've decided to challenge the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. There was another uproar. The audience could not help but feel that they did not come for nothing today. They had witnessed the heaven-defying strength of two super golden core experts. Just a moment ago, Wu Baoyang had taken advantage of them and was prepared to trample the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency to death. In the blink of an eye, the tables were turned. This kind of grudge situation had always been the most popular topic of discussion in the streets. Qi Wenhan and the others did not have any objections to Lin Yi's decision. Although they were somewhat worried that Lin Yi would not be able to continue the challenge, if they had the same strength, they would definitely make the same decision. The South Continent Sea had never been a place of benevolence and righteousness. Moreover, the other party was an old enemy with a deep grudge. If they did not take this opportunity to trample him to death, there would be endless troubles in the future. In contrast, the faces of the people from the Dragon Boat Escort Agency were much uglier, especially Long Kiba and Cheng Haonan. They were gnashing their teeth in hatred. They still could not accept the reality that Wu Baoyang, whose strength was comparable to a middle-stage nascent soul expert, was defeated by Lin Yi. What should we do? Long Kiba looked at Cheng Haonan. Because he firmly believed that Wu Baoyang was invincible, he did not expect this situation at all. He did not know how to deal with it. There's nothing we can do. I can only do it myself. Cheng Haonan's expression was cold as he looked at Lin Yi on the stage. He had wanted to get someone else to do the dirty work, but he had no other choice now. The situation forced him to do it himself. In order to avenge the death of his son, he would accept it even if he got punished later. All right, then I'll leave it to you, Deputy Escort Cheng. Long Kiba nodded. In name, Cheng Haonan was also a perfected gold core expert, but his strength was even stronger than Wu Baoyang. It would be foolproof to let him take action. Wait, I'll do it myself. I was careless just now. This time, I must kill this bastard. At this time, Wu Baoyang, who was in a sorry state, suddenly got up and walked over. He gritted his teeth and spoke. Although he looked quite miserable, judging from his current footsteps and state, he still had the strength to fight. Chapter 4478. In his eyes, Wu Baoliang could crush all the gold core stage experts of the other escort agencies, but this was already history. Since this guy lost to Ling Yi once, of course, there would be a second time. What's more, he lost in such a humiliating way. Even if he fought in the next round, the possibility of him winning was really not high. Wu Baoliang did not answer. He turned to look at Qing Haonan, waiting for the boss of the Poison Eye Mercenary Corps to speak. I have confidence in the strength of the military counselor. Since the military counselor has requested so, then let him deal with Ling Yi himself. Qing Haonan immediately went with the flow. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't personally deal with Wu Baoliang. Now that Wu Baoliang wanted to try again, there was no reason for him to stop him. After all, whether Wu Baoliang won or lost, he would not lose anything. As for the points, that was something that Long Qiba cared about. It had nothing to do with Qing Haonan. This, well, then I'll leave it to the military counselor. Long Qiba had no choice but to give up. In the face of Lin Yi's public challenge, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency could only rely on two people. One was Wu Baoliang, and the other was Qing Haonan. Chapter 4479. The entire Magic Cold Square was silent for a long time. Even the executive referee did not dare to speak. In a battle of this level, unless it was a life-and-death battle or someone fell out of the arena, the referee would not dare to intervene. The strange and tense atmosphere lasted for more than a moment. After confirming that Wu Baoliang was dead, the executive referee finally announced Lin Yi's victory. The audience burst into an uproar that had been suppressed for a long time. Everyone's respect for Wu Baoliang had now been completely transferred to Lin Yi, and it was even greater than Wu Baoliang. Winning the previous round could be said to be luck, but now he had won 2 rounds in a row. Even Wu Baoliang was killed by his own move. There was nothing more to say. There were so many masters present. Not to mention the many Golden Core stage escorts, even those in the nascent Soul stage could not truly suppress Wu Baoliang. As for killing him with Wu Baoliang's own move, it was impossible. However, Lin Yi did it in front of everyone. Phew. Looking at Wu Baoliang's corpse on the ground, Lin Yi let out a long sigh. In this way, his trip to the South Continent was finally a success. Although a lot of things happened in between, and there were many unexpected gains and adventures, it was undeniable that this mission was a little too long. It was just to hunt down a demonic cultivator, Wu Baoliang, and it had taken several months. Even Lin Yi could not help but feel a little tired. However, if it was not for the improvement of his strength in the past few months, Lin Yi would really be helpless against Wu Baoliang, who was comparable to a nascent Soul stage master. Now that the conditions were right, not only did he successfully complete the mission, but because he mastered the Raging Flame Thousand Bursts fist, his strength skyrocketed again, which was worthy of celebration. Wu Baoliang had been killed. The purpose of this trip to the South Continent Escort Agency was achieved, and Lin Yi could now retire. Moreover, he had already fought 3 rounds with Wu Baoliang. Even if he won, in the eyes of others, he would have lost a lot of vital energy and would not have much combat power left. However, Lin Yi was still standing in the ruins of the arena. He looked at Qing Haonan from afar and said calmly, "I will continue to challenge the Dragon Boat Escort Agency." Everyone present was speechless, and they couldn't help but look at Lin Yi with a strange gaze. Not only was this guy powerful, but his personality was also so domineering. He had only suffered a loss at the hands of Wu Baoliang, but now he had killed Wu Baoliang. It was clear that he wanted to vent his anger on the entire Dragon Boat Escort Agency. What they didn't know was that Lin Yi wasn't interested in dealing with the Dragon Boat Escort Agency at all. He just wanted to use this opportunity to get rid of Qing Haonan. Young hero Ling is indeed a straightforward person. What a character. Qi Mingyuan sat in the judge's seat and laughed heartily. If it had been someone else who saw Lin Yi making such a decision without authorization, they might have felt a knot in their heart. However, Qi Mingyuan would not feel the same way. His personality had always been straightforward, and Lin Yi's behavior was to his liking. A man should be decisive in killing and take revenge. If he was Lin Yi, he would definitely choose to get rid of the problem at its roots. As long as nothing happened to the person in question, it didn't matter even if he failed and lost points. This was the aura that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency should have. In contrast, Boundless Sea, who was sitting next to Qi Mingyuan, had an ugly expression on his face. He looked at Long Qiba and Cheng Haonan with eyes that were spewing fire. He wanted to skin these two bastards alive. He didn't hesitate to offend the other judges and think of a way to create an escort agency leader challenge just to create an opportunity for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency to deal with Ling Wan and the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Previously, Cheng Haonan and his group had said that it would be a piece of cake. But now, not only did they fail to kill Ling Wan and the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, their morale soared and their points rose higher and higher. Wasn't this the same as shooting themselves in the foot? If this continued, who could stop the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's rise? Didn't all of the plans that Boundless Sea had come up with become a complete joke? If the Four Seas Escort Agency wanted to rise again, they had to first get rid of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and then use their trump card to get rid of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, killing two birds with one stone. But now, they couldn't even complete the first step. Even if Boundless Sea got rid of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, what could he do? The Heavens Equal Escort Agency was still high up in the sky. No one could shake its position. It was about to sit on the throne of the escort agencies, while his Four Seas Escort Agency was about to become history. This result made Boundless Sea want to cry, but there was nothing he could do. He didn't have an abnormal golden core expert like Lin Yi. Even if he did, the Four Seas Escort Agency wouldn't have the chance to jump out and challenge him. They could only watch, unable to do anything. The only consolation for Boundless Sea was that because the Dragon Boat Escort Agency had lost 2 matches in a row, their points had dropped by 200 points. They had just lost back all of the 200 points they had won, allowing the Four Seas Escort Agency to return to 5th place. It could be considered a blessing in disguise. Boundless Sea was frowning. As the target of Lin Yi's challenge, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency was in a dire situation. Not only did they lose a super golden core expert like Wu Baoyang, their points were also in danger. The entire Dragon Boat Escort Agency was in a precarious situation. This time, they had no other choice but to let Cheng Haonan fight personally. Even if he wanted to avoid it, he couldn't. Moreover, Ling Yi had delivered the opportunity to take revenge to him. How could he avoid it? With a solemn expression, Cheng Haonan slowly walked onto the stage. This time, in order to take care of the audience, the conference had finally arranged for a backup challenge arena. Although the security measures were not as strict as the original one, as long as it wasn't like Lin Yi and Wu Baoliang's previous attacks, there shouldn't be a problem. Since you want to die, I'll be merciful and grant your wish, Cheng Haonan said coldly as he looked at Lin Yi. Although he said that, he was still extremely vigilant. Although Wu Baoliang was slightly weaker than him, the difference between the two wasn't that big. Especially when the opponent used the 1,000 sand burst fist, even he had to be careful. If he was even slightly careless, he would suffer a huge loss, and he might even fail miserably. Chapter 4480. Bastard. I will make you pay the price. My son's death will be paid in blood today. Cheng Haonan's already ugly face instantly turned livid, but he was much more shrewd than Wu Baoliang. Even if he was furious, he would not show it too much. If he was flustered and exasperated, he would only mess up and follow in Wu Baoliang's footsteps. Plus or minus Apex novel. Huh, then you seem to have found the wrong person. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not expect this guy to blame Qing Ketian's death on him, but he did not mention that it was the divine nun of the Eastern Sea who did it. This self-deceiving ostrich mentality was really funny. If you didn't sow discord, would something have happened to my son? No matter what, you have to die today. As he spoke, Qing Haonan's violent aura suddenly calmed down for some reason. Other than his ferocious expression, he seemed no different from an ordinary person at first glance. Then go ahead and give it a try. Lin Yi was still calm, but his heart tightened. He could not help but reevaluate the opponent in front of him with caution. He was not afraid that his opponent would become flustered or even mad. However, his current state was like a bloodthirsty beast suddenly holding back its aura. This was a sign that he was targeting his prey. It was extremely dangerous. Although he did not know his opponent's exact strength, it was enough to tell that Qing Haonan, the boss of the Poison Eye mercenary group, was far more difficult to deal with than Wu Baoyang. Under Qing Haonan's influence, the domineering aura that Lin Yi had revealed when he killed Wu Baoyang also became more reserved and deep. His intuition told Lin Yi that the opponent in front of him was not the kind of existence that could be crushed in one move. He had to be careful. The fifth challenge between the head of the escort agency, Ling Yi of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency against Qing Haonan of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. Begin. After whetting the audience's appetite, the referee immediately announced the start of the match. As soon as he finished speaking, on the arena, the two figures disappeared at the same time. The audience was shocked. It seemed that both of them had adopted the same strategy, which was to strike first. The two silhouettes were extremely fast, and there were blurry afterimages everywhere on the stage. For a moment, many people couldn't even find their real bodies. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked and absent-minded. This kind of speed had long surpassed the limit of a golden core stage expert. In their eyes, it wasn't strange at all that Lin Yi had such strength. After all, his heaven-defying performance just now had left a deep impression in their hearts. What they didn't expect was Qing Haonan of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency was actually an expert of this level. In the previous battle, Qing Haonan had been deliberately hiding his strength, causing everyone to think that he was just a so-so. Unexpectedly, this guy was only at the peak of the Gold Core realm, but in fact, he was also comparable to the masters of the Yuanying realm. First, it was Wu Baoyang, and now it was Qing Haonan. Everyone could not help but discuss. This unknown Dragon Boat Escort Agency really had some hidden talents. Bang! While everyone was guessing, the two had already begun their first exchange of blows. Both sides did not use their trump cards right from the start and were extremely cautious in probing each other's strength. This guy was really strong. Lin Yi's heart sank. Although it was just a probing attack, the 29 styles of the Raging Fire 8 trigrams palm that he used was definitely not weak. However, it was easily blocked by his opponent. It seemed that he had done it with ease. More importantly, his opponent did not use any powerful martial arts. It was just ordinary punches and kicks. From this alone, it was enough to determine that Qing Haonan's absolute strength was definitely much stronger than Wu Baoyang's. At least, his strength foundation was far from what Wu Baoyang could compare to. Wu Baoyang's strength lay only in his raging sand thousand bursting fist. As long as one could break this fatal killer move, one would find that his own strength was actually not that strong. However, Qing Haonan was different. His strength foundation was much more solid, and his punches and kicks were extremely powerful. Without a killer move like the raging sand thousand bursting fist, someone like Wu Baoyang would not even be qualified to fight with him. At most, he would be knocked down in one blow without any suspense. While Lin Yi was feeling fearful, Qing Haonan on the other side could not help but mutter. After fighting with Wu Baoyang for 3 consecutive rounds, he thought that Lin Yi's vital energy should have been almost depleted. It would be amazing if he had 50% or 60% of his strength left. He did not expect him to still have so much vital energy and not show any signs of fatigue. No wonder he could kill the military advisor. This kid's strength is indeed extraordinary. Qing Haonan secretly frowned. Unlike an expert like Wu Baoyang who only pursued powerful martial arts, Ling Yi started with ordinary punches and kicks and had always been good at it. His foundation was much deeper than ordinary people, and it could be said that he was well versed in it. He could easily see the opponent's foundation with just a glance. If Wu Baoliang's foundation was 10 points, then Ling Yi's foundation was at least 30 points, or even 50 points. They were not on the same level, especially when both of their martial arts techniques were similar. Wu Baoliang's defeat was a sure thing. No wonder the situation just now was one-sided. After a probing exchange of moves, the threat in each other's hearts instantly increased by a level. At the same time, they rejoiced inwardly. Fortunately, they didn't underestimate their opponent just now. Otherwise, they might really have suffered a great loss, and it would be too late for regrets. Looking at Qing Haonan, who was still restraining his aura, Lin Yi's mind raced as he calculated the next strategy to deal with the enemy. According to his past experience, the better the foundation of an expert, the less likely it was to show flaws, especially the kind that could be fatal in one blow. Facing such an opponent, he had to be prepared to fight against a fighting machine because a fighting machine would not make mistakes. Similarly, people like Qing Haonan would not make mistakes. As such, there were very few strategies for Lin Yi to choose from. He only had two choices. He could either fight with his opponent with endurance and ensure that he did not make any mistakes and wait for his opponent to make a mistake, or he could fight with his strength and use his most powerful killer move to end the battle in one blow. These two choices had their pros and cons. The former seemed more reliable, but it was extremely difficult. Once his endurance was not as good as his opponent, he would be the first to reveal a flaw, and he would be in trouble. As for the latter, it was extremely risky. Once he used this strategy, there were only two possibilities. Either he could kill his opponent in one blow, which was the most ideal situation, or he could let his opponent take the blow. Then, Lin Yi would definitely be unlucky and suffer a fatal backlash. Chapter 4481. After a little consideration, Lin Yi quickly made a decision. He would first try to entangle with Qing Haonan. Anyway, there was a continuous supply of genuine qi in the space of the jade pendant. In terms of endurance alone, if Lin Yi claimed to be the second in the world, no one would dare to claim to be the first in the world. Even if he faced Qing Haonan, he had enough advantages. Moreover, Lin Yi's self-control had always been extremely strong. If he really wanted to do it flawlessly, it was not impossible. On the other hand, the second strategy was obviously risking his life. Lin Yi had never been a gambler. Unless it was a last resort, he would never gamble his life with others. With a plan in mind, Lin Yi's next move was naturally very clear. While using butterfly subtle steps to maintain his body movement, he used various martial arts techniques to deal with the opponent. Frenzy 8 trigram palm, frenzy fist, frenzy 1000 kicks, etc., all kinds of martial arts techniques were used one after another. There was basically no pause. If it was someone else doing this, they would be the first to exhaust their genuine qi before they could kill the opponent. After all, no matter how majestic the genuine qi foundation was, there was always a limit. However, Lin Yi obviously did not have this concern. In contrast, Qing Haonan was far less extravagant than Lin Yi. He had never used any particularly powerful martial arts techniques. He was purely using ordinary punches and kicks to deal with it. However, although it was said to be ordinary punches and kicks, the power was actually not trivial. Even compared with these martial arts techniques of Lin Yi, he was not at a disadvantage at all. The more Lin Yi fought, the more shocked he became. He'd never been in a situation like this before. His opponent was only using normal punches and kicks, yet he was able to fight him head-on when he was at full power. He even had the upper hand. If he did not experience it personally, this kind of thing was almost unimaginable. However, after a few stalemates, Lin Yi also more or less touched a little of the essence of the opponent's punches and kicks. The key was that this was not purely ordinary punches and kicks, but some genuine qi was poured into it. Of course, the amount of true qi Qing Haonan infused into each of his punches and kicks was not much. Otherwise, the gains would not make up for the losses. In that case, he might as well just use martial arts techniques. After all, martial arts techniques existed to maximize the power of true qi, and the amount of true qi Cheng Haonan infused into his punches and kicks was far from the limit of martial arts techniques. However, although the amount of true qi the opponent exerted on his fists and legs was small, it was all used on the blade. Just that tiny bit of true energy had actually caused the might of his fists and legs to obtain a qualitative increase, and it was even to the extent that it wasn't the slightest bit inferior to most ordinary martial techniques. Such ability was simply miraculous. This Cheng Haonan was indeed worthy of being the boss of the Poison Eye mercenary group. To be able to become a formidable character, he was indeed not simple. Although Wu Baoyang's violent Sand Thousand bursting fist was powerful, Lin Yi was only afraid of the move itself. He didn't care much about Wu Baoyang himself. However, now that he was facing Cheng Haonan, even if the other party was an enemy that he had to kill, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a trace of admiration in his heart. This person brought him pressure. It was far above Wu Baoyang's. Because Cheng Haonan's momentum wasn't as astonishing as Wu Baoyang's, the audience couldn't feel the strength of Cheng Haonan as clearly as Lin Yi. Watching the fast-paced exchange of various moves on the stage, they felt that the two sides were evenly matched. Instead, they felt that the two sides were evenly matched, and they were fighting to their heart's content. Even Qi Wenhan felt this way, and he couldn't control his emotions as he watched. However, Steward Song, who was standing beside him, subtly shook his head. If this continued, young hero Ling might not be able to survive. It wasn't just him. In the distance, Black Eagle escort agencies Zhao Shanying, Qi Mingyuan, Boundless Sea, and the others on the judging panel were all people with keen eyesight. At this moment, in the seemingly evenly matched stalemate, it was clear who was superior. Although it wasn't very obvious, there was no doubt that Lin Yi was being suppressed by Cheng Haonan. On Qi Mingyuan's side, a worried expression appeared on Boundless Sea's face. As long as Cheng Haonan could successfully take care of Lin Yi, then the plan would go back on track. Everything would still be under control, and his 4C's escort agency would still have the chance to laugh to the end. Lin Yi's disadvantage wasn't obvious at the start, but as the pace of attack and defense became faster and faster, an opening immediately appeared. Although Lin Yi had the powerful backing of the Jade Pendant space and wasn't afraid of any qi consumption, the problem was that even the most convenient martial arts technique needed to store qi during the process of using it. It was just a difference in the amount of time needed to store qi. Using all kinds of powerful martial arts repeatedly allowed Lin Yi to maintain a huge pressure on Cheng Haonan, but at the same time, he unknowingly exposed an unavoidable opening, rhythm. Every martial art technique needed to store qi, which meant that Lin Yi couldn't increase the pace of attack and defense too quickly, because there was bound to be a period of rest in between. No matter how short the time Lin Yi compressed, in the end, it was still unavoidable. In comparison, Cheng Haonan, who only used normal punches and kicks, didn't have this worry at all. Cheng Haonan clearly grasped this opening, so he thought of ways to increase the pace. Once the pace exceeded Lin Yi's upper limit, then the fight would completely fall into his control. The current situation was clearly tilting in this direction. More and more people gradually began to realize that Cheng Haonan had the advantage all this time, and his advantage was rapidly expanding. Bang! Once again, the Wildfire 8 trigrams palm, which he was so proud of, was blocked by the opponent's normal punches and kicks. Seeing Cheng Haonan's unharmed appearance, Lin Yi's heart couldn't help but sink. This was the 30 forms of the Wildfire 8 trigrams palm, and its power was not to be underestimated. Even Cheng Haonan didn't dare to take it head-on just a moment ago, but now he could deal with it so easily. This was the difference in pace. Now this pace had far exceeded Lin Yi's upper limit. Without time to store strength, it caused a powerful martial art like the Wildfire 8 trigrams palm to lose its original power. This was a very dangerous signal. At the beginning of the duel, Cheng Haonan's aura was still very restrained, like a fierce beast withdrawing its claws. But now, Lin Yi clearly felt that the opponent's pressure was getting stronger and stronger. That extremely dangerous aura was also becoming more and more obvious, like the fierce beast was about to bare its claws. No, He had to quickly get rid of this rhythm, or he would lose without a doubt. Lin Yi wasn't an idiot. There was no way he'd stick to his original strategy in a situation like this. It was a dead end, and so the situation forced him to make a change. He'd bet his life on it, and he'd give it his all. Chapter 4482. It was better to be safe than sorry. Even though he had the upper hand now, he did not let his guard down at all. However, Lin Yi's next action made Cheng Haonan's eyelids twitch. A familiar blazing flame soared into the sky. Lin Yi had used the 1,000 frenzied flame fist that killed Wu Baoyang just now. Although it was a new move that he had just mastered, in terms of power, the 1,000 frenzied flame fist was still above Lin Yi's frenzied 8 trigrams palm. It was enough to replace it as his trump card. Now that he had reached this critical juncture, it was time to show his strongest trump card. The 1,000 frenzied flame fist was extremely powerful. At this moment, Cheng Haonan was too close to Lin Yi. He was almost instantly enveloped by it without any chance to react. Watching the two figures become blurred in the soaring flame, the audience could not help but be in an uproar. The scene of Lin Yi killing Wu Baoyang with one move had left a deep impression on them. In an instant, they all changed their views. So what if Cheng Haonan had the upper hand? He had a powerful trump card that could turn the tables. No matter how big the previous advantage was, it was just fleeting clouds. Boom. 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 One after another, loud explosions reverberated throughout the entire Deviling City. After witnessing the 3 shocking duels, although the crowd was already used to this kind of earth-shattering scene, they still couldn't help but reveal a look of awe. After all, if they were to face such a terrifying technique, they would definitely die without a doubt, and they wouldn't even have a chance to survive. Everyone thought that the competition would end here and that Cheng Haonan would follow in Wu Baoyang's footsteps. However, at this moment, someone suddenly exclaimed, "Look!" Following the direction that this person pointed, everyone's eyes fell on a figure in the middle of the arena. As they could not see his face clearly, they could not tell whether this person was Lin Yi or Cheng Haonan. However, there was one thing that was quite strange. This person faintly exuded a layer of black gas. This black aura felt exactly the same as Wu Baoyang's, but the scale was much smaller. Wu Baoyang's black aura was overwhelming, but this person's black aura only covered a thin layer around his body. No one knew what it was for, but at least the audience could see it more clearly because of this. The frenzied flame 1,000 explosive fists were in full swing at this moment. However, the figure shrouded in black gas was like a ghost scurrying around the stage. His speed was so fast that it made people dumbfounded. And the most speechless thing was, even though this figure wasn't able to completely dodge the 1,000 heavy explosions, he was able to dodge over 80% of it. Even Zhao Shanying, Boundless Sea, and Qi Mingyuan couldn't help but sigh at his godly reaction speed. There was no doubt that the figure covered in black gas was Cheng Haonan. Apart from not having a powerful martial skill like the violent Sand 1,000 bursting fist, the strength that this guy displayed in other aspects was definitely at a super high level, especially the body technique that was mainly based on ordinary punches and kicks. He was in existence like a monster, truly intimidating. With just ordinary body technique, he was able to exchange blows with Lin Yi, who was using all kinds of powerful martial skills. Moreover, he was able to gain the upper hand and suppress Lin Yi in all aspects. This in itself was already very exaggerated, but now, Cheng Haonan truly showed everyone what it meant by there was no strongest, only stronger. Seeing the opponent quickly pass through the 1,000 heavy explosions like a demon god. As the distance got closer and closer, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly focused. He didn't dare to hold back any longer. Without any hesitation, he gathered all the fire crystals that were in the middle of the sky-high flames and detonated them at the same time. This was actually very dangerous. Even though the explosion of the fire crystals was under Lin Yi's control, he couldn't completely avoid this incomparably terrifying destructive power. He would still be affected by the explosion, but now that he was covered in frenzied flames, he could avoid some of the damage to a certain extent. However, even so, this was still a really dangerous move. It was inevitable that he would be injured, and it was completely damaging to himself. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Lin Yi would never do this. However, at this point, he had no other choice. Boom! A super shocking loud noise not only shook the entire Devil Leng city, but even the surrounding Devil Leng Sea was stirred up. It was a horrifying scene, as if the end of the world was about to come. As a result, those who were still stranded in the sea who didn't know what was going on all fled in panic, fearing that they would be buried in the sea. Even the surrounding sea was in such a state, and the spectators in the Devil Leng Square who were watching from a close distance were even more unlikely to be spared. They were affected by the air waves that gushed out from the arena, and the whole square was immediately thrown into a mess. Those who were slightly weaker even turned pale and spat out a mouthful of blood, suffering internal injuries from the shock. The South Continent Escort Agency Festival had been held for so many years, and all kinds of life and death duels in the arena had long been a common sight. There were also some eye-catching duels between the strong. However, even a 5-on-5 team battle had never caused such a terrifying commotion, and it was unheard of for someone to suffer internal injuries while watching a competition. It had to be said that this year's South Continent Escort Agency Festival was destined to be recorded in the annals of history. At least, Gold Core stage experts like Lin Yi, Qing Haonan, and Wu Baoliang were definitely unprecedented. Basically, there would be no one who could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. In the midst of the chaos, the soaring flames on the arena suddenly dimmed, and then a figure was seen flying out and falling into the panicked crowd, causing a commotion. Brother Ling. Qi Wenhan's eyelids twitched, and he quickly rushed over to support the person. It was Lin Yi. I'm fine. Lin Yi smiled somewhat reluctantly. After taking a deep look at Qing Haonan on the arena, he immediately began to meditate to heal his injuries. In fact, the injuries he suffered this time were much more serious than when he was beaten by Wu Baoliang. After all, he had used his true qi to protect himself in advance, and Wu Baoliang did not use his full strength. However, this time, he suffered a backlash when he used the frenzied 1,000 explosive fists. Even if he was prepared, he could not fully defend himself, so his injuries were naturally much more serious. Fortunately, the injuries this time were not from a direct hit by Qing Haonan, but from his own 1,000 crushing fists at the last moment. Therefore, as long as he treated his injuries in time, it would not be a big problem. Injuries were not a problem. The real problem now was what to do next. Although Qing Haonan, who was standing on the arena, had also suffered some injuries from the 1,000 crushing fists just now, because he had dodged quickly, his injuries were much lighter than Lin Yi's. The fact that he could still calmly stand on the arena was a clear proof. Chapter 4483. He would also not let go of this great opportunity to avenge his son. Everyone understood the simple logic of taking advantage of someone's weakness. Greater than over equal to therefore, Qing Haonan would definitely continue to challenge the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. The disparity in strength was obvious. Qi Wenhan would be courting death if he went up. This kind of death was meaningless, so Lin Yi could only go up himself. But the problem was, even if Lin Yi went up himself again, what could he use to deal with such a strong opponent? Qing Haonan was different from Wu Baoliang. Not only was Qing Haonan stronger, but he was even more undefeatable. Facing Wu Baoliang's 1,000 sand explosion fists, Lin Yi could still use it as his own, giving him a taste of his own medicine. This kind of miraculous technique could be used against Wu Baoliang, but against Qing Haonan, it was pure nonsense. Not to mention that Qing Haonan's super strong physical skill was not limited to one move and could not be imitated in a short period of time. Even if Lin Yi could really do it, there was no way he could use this method to fight against his opponent. After all, the difference in strength was too big. They were not on the same level at all. Using one's weakness to attack the enemy's strength, wasn't that asking for trouble? He could not do that. His previous experience had given Lin Yi a clear hint. Entangling with Qing Haonan and exhausting his strength would not work. There was only one way left, and that was to use the most powerful killer move to decide the outcome. Since the Raging Flame Thousand Bursting Fist did not work, then he only had one last trump card, a super bomb that combined Dan fire and chi. This was the only solution that Lin Yi could think of. However, time was limited. At most, he only had the time to burn a stick of incense. Moreover, he had to spend some time to heal. In the remaining time, whether or not he could condense a powerful enough super bomb, Lin Yi had no idea. But no matter what, this was the last feasible solution. He could only wait until he went up on stage and think of a way to delay for a while. The situation was critical, and Lin Yi was using every second he had to prepare for the fight. Qi Wenhan and the others beside him were anxious, but they didn't dare to disturb him. They could only wait at the side. If it really didn't work, they could only let Qi Wenhan, the young master, risk his life to save the situation. At the same time, everyone's eyes were focused on Cheng Haonan. Although they had already guessed what he was going to say, they still needed him to say it himself. Cheng Haonan's gaze swept across everyone with a deep meaning. He deliberately paused on Lin Yi for a long time before he finally said, "I've decided to challenge Jinwei Escort Agency." As soon as he said that, everyone in the audience was shocked, especially Qi Wenhan, who had already started walking towards the arena. Hearing Cheng Haonan's words, he couldn't help but stagger and almost fall. He looked at Cheng Haonan with an expression of disbelief. As for Qi Mingyuan and the others, they were all shocked into a daze, and couldn't speak for a long time. Jinwei Escort Agency? Lin Yi, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground to heal, raised his eyebrows. Why did this guy suddenly let me go and challenge Jinwei Escort Agency? Could it be that he had a deep grudge against the Jinwei Escort Agency? As for this Jinwei Escort Agency, Lin Yi basically didn't know much about it. He only knew that it was a middle-ranked escort agency. Its strength was neither strong nor weak, and it kept a low profile. It didn't have a particularly outstanding style, and it belonged to the kind of existence that was easily forgotten in the corner. If it hadn't been suddenly called out by Cheng Haonan in public, not to mention Lin Yi, many of the senior figures of the South Continent Escort Agency Alliance might not have remembered it for a while. It turned out that there was such an unknown, invisible escort agency. After being called out by Cheng Haonan, the chief escort of Jinwei Escort Agency was stunned for a long time before he finally reacted. His face suddenly looked as if he had lost his parents. He had a miserable expression as if his parents had died. There was no grievance in the past, and there was no hatred recently. Why did such a bloody thing suddenly happen to him? Looking at the chief escort's unexpectedly broken expression, Lin Yi knew that this was probably not a personal grudge, but Cheng Haonan had changed his strategy. In fact, it was understandable after thinking about it. Lin Yi admitted that he didn't have enough confidence to deal with Cheng Haonan, and Cheng Haonan, who had just won a match, actually didn't have the confidence to say that he could defeat Lin Yi. Lin Yi's previous performance against Wu Baoyang left the deepest impression on others, and at the same time, it was also the most interesting thing to talk about. Lin Yi gave him a taste of his own medicine. However, Cheng Haonan also noticed another important clue. This guy had an immortal physique like a cockroach, and an endless supply of physical strength and vital energy. Although it was very unbelievable, this was indeed the conclusion that Cheng Haonan had just observed. Previously, after being defeated by Wu Baoyang for the first time, he only rested for 30 minutes. When Lin Yi went on stage again, not only did he not have any injuries, but his vital energy was also very abundant. Especially the latter point, whether it was in the two battles with Wu Baoyang or the battle with himself just now, it was vividly reflected. This kid gave people the feeling that he was like a monster with endless vital energy, which could not be measured by common sense. Injuries could recover quickly, and vital energy was endless. Facing such a heaven-defying opponent, even though Cheng Haonan had just won a match, he still didn't have any confidence in his heart. His opponent was not afraid of exhaustion, but he was. Although he was a master of physical skills, and the amount of vital energy consumed in each punch and kick was extremely low, it seemed to be negligible, and he could withstand the exhaustion far more than ordinary masters. However, once it was sustained for a long time, his vital energy would eventually be exhausted. Just now, in the fierce battle with Lin Yi, especially when he was forced to use his trump card, the blackening of his entire body, at least 50% of his vital energy had been consumed. The blackening of his entire body was a unique skill that Cheng Haonan had painstakingly practiced in recent years after he became a heretic cultivator. By stimulating the meridians and acupoints in his body with evil energy, it made his already strong physical skills even more invincible and domineering. It gave people the feeling that he had instantly turned into a cheat. Cheng Haonan, who was in the blackening state, was enough to crush most masters at the peak of the middle stage of the nascent soul stage. Such a powerful move naturally consumed an extraordinary amount of vital energy. Therefore, unless he was serious, Cheng Haonan would usually not easily use this state. Firstly, he was afraid that the evil energy on his body would be seen by others. Secondly, he was afraid that he would consume too much vital energy, which would lead to weakness in the future. Now, Cheng Haonan had less than half of his vital energy left, and he was also injured. If he were to face Lin Yi in his peak state again, he would almost certainly be at a disadvantage. Even if he won in the end, he would definitely be crippled, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 4484. He could only temporarily settle for the next best thing, and earn more points from the other escort agencies. After all, with his strength, even if he wasn't at his peak, he would still be able to kill as many Golden Core experts as he could without any suspense. As for seeking revenge on Lin Yi, as long as that punk was still in the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, as long as he was still in the Verdant Arc territorial waters, it wouldn't be difficult for Cheng Haonan to find an opportunity in the future. There was no need to take the risk now. What happened next was as expected. The situation was completely under Cheng Haonan's control. Although the high-ranking Golden Core cultivators of the other escort agencies were not weak, they were no different from ordinary passers-by in front of a monster like Cheng Haonan. Cheng Haonan was able to deal with them easily. To make it easier for him to farm points, Cheng Haonan deliberately controlled his strength. He only knocked his opponent off the stage with one move. He had no intention of killing him. After all, according to the rules, once the Golden Core experts of these escort agencies died, they wouldn't be able to accept challenges like the other agencies. Naturally, Cheng Haonan wouldn't be able to farm points from them. Seeing Cheng Haonan's winning streak in the Dragon Boat Escort Agency's points rising, pushing the Four Seas Escort Agency out of the top 5, Boundless Sea looked like he had eaten shit. He wanted to cut this bastard into pieces. They had said that they would crush the Heavens Equal Escort Agency in one go, but now, they had given up halfway through. Instead, they were focused on earning points, and the Four Seas Escort Agency had become the biggest victim. Why did these people only know how to make trouble for themselves? However, even though his stomach was about to explode, Boundless Sea couldn't do anything about it. Even if he was the head of the 5 judges and had the halo of the Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference, he couldn't just stand out and interrupt the match, unless he had a reasonable excuse. Unfortunately, Cheng Haonan continued to challenge and grind for points. Everything was done according to the rules he announced. Even if Boundless Sea squeezed water out of his brain, what excuse could he come up with? He couldn't say it was a loophole in the rules, could he? Wouldn't that be slapping his own face? Boundless Sea was so regretful that his scalp was about to fall off. On the other hand, Lin Yi and the others were happy for Cheng Haonan to do this. After all, no matter how easy it was for Cheng Haonan to farm points, he couldn't avoid the consumption of qi. It was just a little more or a little less. The more points he earned, the more qi he used up, and Lin Yi, who was meditating off the stage, had more time to condense the super bomb, and that was how Lin Yi's advantage was. If Cheng Haonan was tactful enough not to challenge the equal of Heaven Escort Agency, then so be it. However, if he lost his cool, the consequences would be dire. As a result, Lin Yi, Qi Wenhan, and the others were able to sit back and relax. After 2 wins and 2 losses, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency still had 1,070 points. Even if Cheng Haonan were to grind points like this, it wouldn't be easy for him to catch up. After all, under the current challenge rules, farming points was not as easy as it seemed. It was actually a technical problem. Of course, Cheng Haonan could choose not to kill his opponent and then challenge them again without any effort. But the problem was that the escort agencies he had targeted didn't have many points to speak of. Most of them only had 100 or 200 points. Some didn't even have 100 points. As soon as their points reached 0, they would be unconditionally eliminated. This meant that Cheng Haonan could only farm 200 points at most from each escort agency. The weaker ones could only farm 100 points. After that, they would have to change targets and challenge a golden core expert at their peak condition. Strong was strong, but Cheng Haonan wasn't made of iron. These golden core experts were able to become the higher-ups of their respective escort agencies. Which one of them was easy to deal with? In the beginning, Cheng Haonan had an easy time farming points. However, as he consumed more and more qi, especially with the injuries left behind by Lin Yi, every time he faced an opponent at their peak condition, it was clear that he was unable to do as he wished. In the beginning, he could easily defeat his opponent in one move. But later, he had to spend the time of a joss stick to burn before he could barely win. For a moment, the atmosphere became rather strange. Everyone could see that Cheng Haonan was obviously exhausted and could not hold on much longer. But no one knew how much longer this fellow could last. After defeating 4 escort agencies in a row, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency's points had reached as high as 860 points. Not to mention the 4 Seas Escort Agency, even the Divine Wind Escort Agency, which was originally in second place, had been left far behind. The only suspense now was whether Cheng Haonan could last until he overtook the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. If he could do that, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency would replace the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and become the biggest super dark horse in this year's South Continent Escort Agency Grand Event. It would also lock in the position of hegemon of the escort agencies and open a new chapter. If he could not do that, the result would be a little intriguing. This was because Cheng Haonan was already an arrow at the end of its flight. If he could not maintain a strong winning streak, it was very likely that he would be targeted by the escort agency that had obtained the right to challenge him. When that time came, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency would very likely have to cough up all the points they had earned little by little. Cheng Haonan is riding a tiger now, it's hard to get off now. Serves him right. Qi Wenhan said to Lin Yi with a relaxed expression. He was instantly in a good mood when he thought this through. Yes, he is indeed a little too greedy. If he had stopped in time when he reached second place, he would not have fallen into such a passive situation, Lin Yi said with a nod. That's right. If he had stopped earlier, then he would have been able to preserve enough physical strength and Jin Qi. With the terrifying strength he had displayed before, even if the right to challenge fell into the hands of other escort agencies, they would not dare to attack the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. So, it could be said that he could sleep peacefully. But now, if he had stopped in time, he could have preserved enough physical strength and true qi. With the terrifying strength he had displayed previously, even if the right to challenge fell into the hands of other escort agencies, they would not dare to attack the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. So, he could be said to be free of worries. But now, Qi Wenhan sneered. As the two of them spoke, Cheng Haonan once again challenged a new escort agency. Facing the other party's Golden Core stage executives in their peak condition, he could only brace himself and continue to fight. He had no other choice. At this time, the sky was already dark. Bright torches were lit everywhere in the magic cold square. At the same time, many fluorites were set up in advance. Not only was the light not dimmer than it was in the evening, but it was also much brighter. It did not affect the competition at all. Chapter 4485. At that time, the ranking of the 32 escort agencies would finally be settled. Before that, there were still many variables that could not be determined. Cheng Haonan was still persevering. From the moment he defeated Lin Yi in the afternoon, the entire South Continent Escort Agency grand event had become his one-man show. The others could do nothing about it and could only sit and watch from the sidelines. There was nothing they could do about it. The right to challenge was firmly in Cheng Haonan's hands. Huh. This guy is actually using this trick? Lin Yi watched Cheng Haonan's movements in the arena, and the corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. Stalling for time? That's too shameless. Qi Wenhan also saw through Cheng Haonan's plan and could not help but be speechless. It was not just the two of them. At that moment, the entire audience was discussing it. At this moment, Cheng Haonan had deliberately slowed down the pace of his attacks and defenses. In order to preserve as much strength as possible while stalling for time, he had actually adopted a passive strategy of only defending and not attacking. Such a domineering and powerful existence was actually forced to use such a despicable strategy. It was truly lamentable. Although Cheng Haonan seemed to be running out of genuine qi and was somewhat lacking in strength, his formidable strength was still there. If he really wanted to be passive and avoid the battle, even Qi Wenhan, who was known as the small invincible Golden Core realm, would not necessarily be able to gain the upper hand, let alone the average Golden Core expert. Unless the opponent was changed to Lin Yi, it would be more likely. However, this was impossible. Cheng Haonan had been firmly holding on to the right to challenge, and his biggest concern was that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency would obtain the right to challenge. To him, that would be the real disaster. Passively fighting until the time for a joss stick to burn was almost up, then suddenly exploding and knocking the opponent off the arena. Cheng Haonan was now extremely stingy with the use of genuine qi. Every bit of it had to be calculated carefully, and absolutely not a single bit was wasted. After all, to him, whether or not he could retreat in one piece today all depended on the success of this stalling strategy. If he failed, the consequences would be unimaginable. This kind of battle was really not worth watching at all. The audience below the stage were all yawning endlessly. If it wasn't for the strict rule of not interfering with the progress of the competition, they would have already thrown things onto the stage. What kind of bullshit was this? Time passed bit by bit, and Cheng Haonan's delaying tactic finally succeeded in dragging it to the end. It was already 9:00 in the morning, and everyone's eyes were automatically focused on the referees. They really couldn't stand this kind of boring and drowsy match any longer. As the chief judge of this year's conference, Boundless C's expression had completely sunk. He gritted his teeth, wishing he could slap Cheng Haonan into mincemeat. According to his original plan, he was prepared to play some tricks during the second lot drawing and snatch the right to challenge from the 4C's escort agency. Then, he would challenge others to earn some points. Even if it did not go according to his ideal plan, it would at least make the situation look better for his escort agency. However, this time, because of Cheng Haonan's shameless delaying tactic, just by relying on himself, he had dragged it until the hour of the 9:00. How could he have the time now? Looking at Cheng Haonan's exhausted appearance, he looked like he was about to run out of oil. Boundless C wanted to drag it out a bit more. In any case, the conference only said that it would end at the hour of the 9:00. It didn't say whether it would end at the beginning or end of the 9:00. However, facing the anxious gazes of everyone below the stage, if he really did that, Boundless C had no doubt that he would definitely become the target of everyone's criticism. If everyone spat on him, he would be drowned alive. Helpless, Boundless C could only brace himself and walk to the center. Beside him, Qi Mingyuan and the others all had mocking expressions on their faces. This chief judges for C's escort agency had always been used to swaggering around. They had always acted like the overlord of the escort agencies, but now, they were only a measly sixth in points. The dignified hegemon of the escort agency, who fought on their home turf, had lost to the 5 major escort agencies in the blink of an eye. This was simply unprecedented. This time, the 4C's escort agency would really be nailed to the pillar of shame in history. Because of time constraints, this year's Southern Continent Escort Agency Conference has come to an end. Boundless Sea's first sentence made everyone let out a sigh of relief. Each and every one of them had expressions of relief. Fuck, this pain in the ass match had finally come to an end. The audience immediately began to discuss amongst themselves. Right now, on the point rankings, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was still in first place with 1070 points. The Dragon Boat Escort Agency was in second place with 960 points. Third, fourth, and fifth place were Divine Wind Escort Agency, Great Sky Escort Agency, and Black Eagle Escort Agency. As for the Four Seas Escort Agency, they had been forced out of the top 5, settling at 6th place. Among them, the most exciting was the battle for first place between the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. These two escort agencies originated from the Wayark Sea territory, and their points were so high that all the other escort agencies could only look up to them in the dust. Most importantly, the difference between the two agencies was only 110 points. The Dragon Boat Escort Agency had chased after them for an entire afternoon, but in the end, they still fell short. It could only be said that this was the will of the heavens. Qi Mingyuan, Qi Wenhan, and even Lin Yi couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Their faces were filled with excitement. Even now, they still couldn't believe that their Heavens Equal Escort Agency had actually managed to take the lead all the way to the end, becoming the overlord of the escort agencies. In the Southern Continent Sea territory, this position was equivalent to the leader of the righteous path. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them the number one power in the Southern Continent Sea territory. Who wouldn't be excited by such an honor? As for the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, although it was a pity that they didn't manage to overtake the Heavens Equal Escort Agency in the end, they had risen from a small, unknown agency to become the high and mighty second agency. If Long Kiba wasn't satisfied with such a heaven-defying result, then he would really be drowned by everyone's spittle. This was just like a student's exam in the secular world. A straight-A student would sigh all day and say that he couldn't do well in his exams. In the end, when the results came out, he got second place in the whole school. How the fucking hell were the other slackers supposed to live? Looking at the big winners of this South Continent's Escort Agency Grand Meet, other than the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, the next biggest winner was the Black Eagle Escort Agency. Although it had the predecessor of the Yuantong Escort Agency, it was still a newly established escort agency after all. To be able to become one of the top 5 escort agencies in their first grand meet was definitely a cause for celebration, and there were no regrets to speak of. On the other hand, the biggest loser was undoubtedly the Four Seas Escort Agency. As the overlord of the escort agencies, they had fallen to 6th place. From now on, the Four Seas Escort Agency would become the laughingstock of everyone. The era that belonged to the Four Seas Escort Agency was gone forever. Chapter 4486. Feeling everyone's mocking gazes, Boundless Sea, who had become the center of attention, couldn't help but feel his face heat up. He was so ashamed that he wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide in. Unfortunately, there was no such hole in the ground. Even if Boundless Sea wanted to hide, there was no place for him to do so. Of course, with his personality, he definitely wouldn't give up just like that. According to the rules of the conference, it was time for the chief judge to give a concluding speech. However, now that the Four Seas Escort Agency couldn't even enter the 5 Great Escort Agency, the title of chief judge naturally couldn't remain in Boundless Sea's hands. Letting the new overlord, Qi Mingyuan, speak was what everyone wanted. However, Boundless Sea clearly didn't plan on giving up his position just like that. With a solemn expression, he continued, "Even though the competition has ended, there is still an extremely important matter that I need to announce to everyone." What the hell is this guy doing? Qi Mingyuan had already stood up and was about to go on stage, but when he heard this, he couldn't help but stop in his tracks. He looked at each other in confusion. According to my observations, someone has cheated in this year's conference and used dishonorable methods to compete. This has brought shame to the fairness of the conference, so severe punishment must be meted out. Boundless Sea's words were stern and righteous. After rousing everyone's emotions, he loudly announced, "As the chief judge, I now revoke the points of Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and Dragon Boat Escort Agency and expel them from the South Continent Escort Agency Alliance. From now on, they will never participate in the conference again." What? The first and second place escort agencies are both disqualified? The crowd instantly went into an uproar. The entire Magic Lang Plaza instantly erupted. Everyone who had been drowsy from watching the competition suddenly became alert and shouted the same question. What's going on? Even the onlookers were so excited, let alone Qi Mingyuan and the others who bore the brunt of it. They all looked at Boundless Sea with the same expression. Is this guy fucking crazy? Playing this kind of trick because he can't afford to lose? Who does he think he is? He's just a stray dog who lost his position as the overlord of the escort agencies. He can't even enter the 5 great escort agency, yet he still has the face to say that he is the chief judge of the conference and even dares to declare that the first 2 agencies will be disqualified and permanently expelled from the South Continent Escort Agency Alliance. Qi Mingyuan and the others were shocked, but Long Qiba and Cheng Haonan were shocked. Apart from their ugly expressions, their hearts couldn't help but thump. Neither of them were idiots. From Boundless Sea's tone, they could faintly guess what he was planning. The crowd was about to go out of control. Boundless Sea wasn't worried at all. On the contrary, he was secretly delighted. In his opinion, the more agitated these people were, the better. The more agitated they were, the easier it would be for him to guide them. Once the crowd became agitated, everyone present would become a spear in his hand. Wherever he pointed, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency would not be able to escape. In fact, in his original plan, this trump card was only meant to be used against the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. However, after recalling the course of the competition, suddenly, a bright idea struck him. He might as well go all the way and crush the 2 escort agencies. He had no choice but to do this, even though he had killed a Dragon Boat Escort Agency. His 4 Seas Escort Agency would be able to rise back into the ranks of the 5 great escort agencies. At the very least, he wouldn't lose too much face. However, this wouldn't change the fact that the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency had become the hegemon of the escort agencies. Boundless Sea had all sorts of conflicts with the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. In the future, if Qi Mingyuan became the leader, his fate could be imagined. His days definitely wouldn't be easy, so no matter what, he had to think of a way to destroy the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. Now that he had a rare opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, it would be strange if he didn't take it. Boundless Sea, how exactly did my Equal of Heaven Escort Agency cheat? How did we use unfair methods to compete? You'd better tell me clearly in front of everyone. Otherwise, we'll have to fight to the death today. Qi Mingyuan slowly walked in front of Boundless Sea. His tone was calm, but his killing intent was chilling. Boundless Sea's words meant that he had completely shed all pretense of cordiality. Since the other side had already drawn the line, he naturally wouldn't back down. If Boundless Sea couldn't give a satisfactory explanation, he wouldn't hesitate to fight to the death with the 4 Seas Escort Agency. He, Qi Mingyuan, had started from scratch. In the dangerous waters of the southern continent, he had single-handedly brought the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency to glory. How could such an ambitious and ruthless person be easy to deal with? Even if their foundation wasn't as strong as the 4 Seas Escort Agency, when it came to bravery and courage, the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency definitely wouldn't lose to anyone here. Head Escort Qi is right. Boundless Sea, why do you speak like you're farting? No matter what, you're still the previous hegemon of the escort agency. Are you really that bad at losing? You dropped out of the top 5 and you're already acting like a shameless villain? Isn't that too laughable? Long Qiba chimed in. He and Qi Mingyuan had an irreconcilable grudge. Unless he had no other choice, he definitely wouldn't be willing to go along with Qi Mingyuan's words. He wanted to be more strong-willed, but the problem was that he had a guilty conscience. With the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency acting as a shield, he still had a chance to bluff his way through. If he was singled out, he would undoubtedly die. Qi Mingyuan and Long Qiba's simultaneous attacks made everyone's gazes towards Boundless Sea extremely playful. With his current situation, suddenly making such a slanderous accusation to drag down the number 1 and number 2 escort agencies, anyone would feel that Boundless Sea's motives were impure. After all, the 4 Seas escort agency had fallen out of the top 5. Such a humiliating matter had happened to the 4 Seas escort agency. It was obvious that the 4 Seas escort agency was struggling at death's door. It wouldn't be strange for Boundless Sea to do anything at this time. However, his desire to destroy the Equal of Heaven escort agency and the Dragon Boat escort agency was too much to be deceiving himself. In the eyes of at least 90% of the audience, Boundless Sea's actions were impossibly stupid. Not only would he not save the 4 Seas escort agency, he would only push the 4 Seas escort agency into an even more bottomless abyss. After all, ever since the Southern Continent escort agency's establishment, there had never been a situation where the number 1 and 2 escort agencies were eliminated. This was completely illogical. Everyone was in high spirits as they watched the show. In their eyes, this scene was much more interesting than the group arena. A match like Qinghaonan's would make people sleepy, but this definitely wouldn't. Just based on Boundless Sea's previous words, this matter was destined to become the focal point of the entire Southern Continent. This was a rich topic of conversation. Boundless Sea remained calm despite being stared at by everyone. He had no intention of backing down. Chapter 4487. After all, he was used to being the overlord of an escort agency. No matter how despicable he was in private, he was always full of himself in public. You guys don't agree? Boundless Sea looked at Qi Mingyuan provocatively. As for Long Qiba and Qinghaonan, he didn't even bother to look at them. In his eyes, they were already dead. You're still acting like the head judge. You're used to being the overlord of an escort agency. You're not going to let go even if you're beaten to death. Do you think we'll agree? Qi Mingyuan sneered. What about you guys? What do you think? Boundless Sea smiled nonchalantly and turned to look at Zhao Bufan and the others. If the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency were destroyed, the 4 Seas Escort Agency would only rise from the 6th to the 4th place. However, the Divine Wind Escort Agency would rise from the 3rd place to the 1st place. The benefits they would receive would be much greater than the 4 Seas Escort Agencies. Moreover, this was a rare opportunity for the other 5 escort agencies. The bosses of these escort agencies had always placed profit above all else. There was no need to guess what they would choose. As long as he could obtain their support, Boundless Sea would be invincible. Let alone the Dragon Boat escorts, even the Heavens Equal Escort Agency wouldn't be able to make a comeback. Everyone looked at Zhao Bufan and waited for the chief escort of God Wind Escort Agency to speak. He didn't disappoint them. He coughed and said loudly, letting Heavens Equal Escort Agency and Dragon Boat Escort Agency be eliminated, Chief Escort High really has a good plan. Unfortunately, I don't agree with you. I beg to differ. Boundless Sea was stunned. He didn't need to use any strength to become the overlord of an escort agency. This was a fat piece of meat that was delivered to his doorstep. How could he disagree? My opinion is the same as head escort Zhao's, Great Sky Escort Agency said. After listening to the two men's statements, everyone's gazes turned to Zhao Shanning with great interest. Currently, the Black Hawk Escort Agency was ranked 5th and could be considered as one of the top 5 escort agencies in the country. My Black Eagle Escort Agency wouldn't do such a shameless and laughable thing, Zhao Shanning sneered. He curled his lips in disdain. Boundless Sea's expression instantly darkened. These three's stance meant that none of the 5 great escort agency agreed. His position as the main judge was because 4 Seas Escort Agency was ranked 6th. No matter how you looked at it, it didn't seem right. This was completely different from what he had expected. It wasn't what he had expected at all. It wasn't just Boundless Sea. Even Qi Mingyuan couldn't help but look at these people with astonishment. Even he didn't think that these big bosses of the escort agency would be so righteous at a time like this. The bystanders were all confused. But Zhao Bufan and the others knew that it wasn't because they found their conscience and changed their mindset. Especially God Wind Escort Company. If they said that they weren't tempted by the position of the head of the escort company, they would be lying to themselves. But the problem was that he didn't dare to take this hot potato. Boundless Sea dared to eliminate the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency with a single sentence. If the Divine Wind Escort Agency took over, wouldn't Boundless Sea do the same thing again? Wouldn't the Divine Wind Escort Agency be disqualified as well? It could be seen from everyone's mocking gazes. Boundless Sea's method was completely fooling around. It wasn't feasible at all. In this kind of situation, even if the God Wind Escort Agency got lucky, it would be a castle in the air. Not only would they offend the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and Dragon Boat Escort Agency, if something really happened, Boundless Sea could still push the blame onto them and make them the scapegoats. And he would stay out of it. After all, the God Wind Escort Agency was the biggest beneficiary. Boundless Sea's intentions couldn't be seen by others, but he wanted to hide it from these people's eyes. It was impossible. Not only did Zhao Bufan and the others not accept it, they even put on a righteous stance and made a false accusation. This unexpected reaction made Boundless Sea dumbfounded. He couldn't react for a long time. However, there was no turning back. Since Boundless Sea had already openly offended them, he couldn't just give up halfway. Zhao Bufan and the others' opposition could only mean one thing. They were stupid. If they didn't take the meat that fell into their mouths, then they couldn't blame the Four Seas Escort Agency for not eating well. It seems like everyone doesn't know the truth. But since the head judge has already given such an obvious hint, can't you all use your brains to think before you speak? Starting from Zhao Bufan, Boundless Sea's mocking gaze swept across their faces one by one. In the end, his gaze landed on Qi Mingyuan and Long Qiba. If you have something to say, then say it. If we don't clear things up today, there will definitely be blood spilled between us. Qi Mingyuan snorted coldly. He wasn't afraid of Boundless Sea's dirty tricks at all. However, Long Qiba didn't have this confidence. Being stared at by Boundless Sea like this, he subconsciously shrunk his neck. He secretly glanced at Qing Haonan, whose face was also ashen. Today's matter was probably over. Okay, then let everyone be witnesses. Boundless Sea smiled coldly and turned to Long Qiba. Head Escort Long, this head judge will ask you a question. You better answer truthfully. Do you know that Qing Haonan and Wu Baoyang are both evil cultivators? Evil cultivators? Everyone's expressions changed. The powerful Qing Haonan and Wu Baoyang were actually evil cultivators? Only Lin Yi's expression was normal. He didn't dare to say for sure whether Qing Haonan was a real evil cultivator or not, but there was no doubt that Wu Baoyang was. This was something recognized by the Northern Island officials. However, what surprised Lin Yi was that even if they were evil cultivators, so what? Did everyone need to have such a big reaction? Due to the chaos in the southern continent's sea, murder and arson were everywhere. Lin Yi's first impression was that this should be a paradise for evil cultivators. Otherwise, why would Wu Baoyang run all the way here to take refuge? Everyone should have long been used to evil cultivators. There was no reason for them to be so shocked, right? In the end, Lin Yi was just an outsider. Although he had stayed here for a few months, his understanding of the southern continent's sea was not deep. He didn't even have a deep understanding of the Southern Continent's Escort Agency Festival. If he knew that this was the representative of the Southern Continent's righteous path, he would understand why everyone had such a reaction to evil cultivators. Beside him, Qi Wenhan's reaction was interesting. After hearing Boundless Sea's words, he raised his hand and slapped himself in the face. His face was full of regret. Why didn't I think of that? Chapter 4488. He knew that Wu Baoyang was a heretic, but he had never thought of using this point to make a fuss. It could only be said that as the young master of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, Qi Wenhan still had a long way to go. If he wanted to reach the level of a crafty old fox like Boundless Sea, he still needed more experience. You're slandering us. Everyone, don't believe him. Boundless Sea is simply jealous and can't afford to lose. He maliciously slandered our dragon boat escort agency. Everyone had yet to digest this explosive inside story. Long Kiba hurriedly refuted with a red face, while Qinghaonan's face was pale. The worst situation had finally happened, slandering us? Boundless Sea smiled calmly. He didn't even look at Long Kiba. He turned to the crowd and said, "Everyone here is a discerning person. Think carefully about the match between Wu Baoyang and Qinghaonan. Both of them had a strange layer of black aura. Don't you think it's strange at all?" At this point, if they still couldn't react, then they would truly be idiots. Before, when they hadn't thought about it in this direction, they hadn't felt that anything was wrong. But now that Boundless Sea had pointed it out, they immediately felt that there was something fishy going on. They're clearly only Golden Core perfection, but Wu Baoyang and Qinghaonan are far stronger than Golden Core experts. Even nascent soul experts might not be their match. Is this normal? Moreover, I believe you've never seen this strange layer of black aura on their bodies before, right? Boundless Sea struck the iron while it was hot. Nonsense. Seeing everyone's suspicious gazes, Long Kiba couldn't help but anxiously defend himself. Long Kiba couldn't help but explain, "Boundless Ocean, with your logic, does that mean all experts who can challenge those above them are evil cultivators? As the head escort of the Four Seas Escort Agency, are your standards so low? You haven't even seen these geniuses before? As for the black aura, it's purely baseless malicious slander. This is a secret technique that will never be passed on to outsiders. Is it strange that you haven't seen it before?" Everyone's gaze focused back on Boundless Sea. Although they had their doubts, Boundless Sea's accusations lacked concrete evidence. Did he want to remove the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency from the list with just these speculations? Isn't this a little too far-fetched? You're about to die and you still want to quibble? Boundless Sea sneered, "Then tell me. What kind of spiritual root type of cultivator could produce a black gas? Don't you think it's too easy for you to use the words unique secret technique? Regardless of whether it's a unique secret skill or not, it must be supported by the attribute of the spirit root. It is indeed impossible to create black energy. Wu Baoyang is dead and we can't verify it from him, but Qinghaonan should at least prove it." Zhao Bufan suddenly interrupted. Even though he didn't want to be used by Boundless Sea as a tool, if he could prove that he was an evil cultivator, then things would be different. He couldn't let Boundless Sea take all the credit. Otherwise, Boundless Sea might take advantage of this opportunity to ride on his head again. With how shameless Boundless Sea was, it wasn't that they couldn't do something like exchanging contribution points for ranking. He has an extremely rare mutated spiritual root. It's normal that you guys haven't seen him before. Long Kiba said with a guilty conscience. Now that things had come to this, he could only bite the bullet. A mutated spiritual root. Not only could he explain why he could fight enemies of a higher level, but he could also explain the origin of the black energy. It was killing two birds with one stone. Of course, his excuse wasn't flawless. Whether it was a mutated spiritual root or not, as long as a professional spirit root testing tool was used to verify it. It was just that normal spirit root testing tools could be seen everywhere. However, it was very rare to have a 100% mutated spiritual root. Only those academies in the Eastern continent would have such a professional and exquisite tool. In the chaotic Southern continent, it was rare. Qinghaonan could only gamble that there wasn't such a tool prepared at the scene. That way, he would at least have a chance to turn the situation around. Otherwise, he would really lose his life. Sure enough, after Long Kiba said this, Zhao Bufan and the others couldn't help but frown. They really didn't have a 100% mutated spiritual root testing tool. Hee, mutated spiritual root? Boundless Sea smiled calmly. Long Kiba and the others had handed themselves over to him. If he still couldn't deal with the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, then he didn't need to mingle in the southern continent anymore. He immediately said coldly, "Okay, then tell everyone, what kind of mutated spiritual root does Qing Haonan have? Let him come out and show us some basic martial arts. We'll know at a glance." Yes, show him. Everyone in the field agreed. They were just wondering why Qing Haonan never used basic martial arts, but only used ordinary punches and kicks to fight. Even if this was his fighting style, as a dignified expert in the peak of Gold Core realm, he didn't even use his best martial arts. Wasn't it too strange? Not only Qing Haonan, but even Wu Baoyang didn't show any basic martial arts with a clear attribute. He only showed a powerful martial art that everyone couldn't understand. Now that they thought about it, it was strange no matter how they looked at it, this. Long Kiba was dumbfounded. Even he didn't know what to do now. For all evil cultivators, no matter if they started cultivating directly or entered the Tao halfway, there was at least one point that was indisputable. All evil cultivators had to destroy their previous spirit root attribute before they started cultivating. This was because all evil cultivation methods were against the norm, and the foundation of their creation was the reverse spirit root attribute. Not only the 5 normal spiritual roots, but also those rare mutated spiritual roots had to be completely destroyed. Otherwise, it would cause a fatal conflict in the body, and the only result would be a sudden death. Long Kiba was dumbfounded. Qing Haonan was also dumbfounded. Even if it was wind, rain, thunder, lightning, or other mutated spiritual roots, they could at least be justified and show the corresponding spiritual root attribute martial arts. But how could he do it? He couldn't say that he had a black spiritual root, right? How could there be such an inexplicable spiritual root in the world? It might be possible to deceive a 3-year-old child, but it was impossible to deceive so many experts present, especially Boundless Sea, who knew their ins and outs. Come on, we won't wrongly accuse a righteous cultivator, and we won't let any evil cultivator go. As long as you can prove that you are not an evil cultivator, Boundless Sea will kowtow and apologize to you on the spot. Boundless Sea sneered and said eloquently. This time, Long Kiba was completely at a loss of what to do. In this kind of situation, no matter how much he said, it was useless. Only by displaying the fundamental martial techniques could he clear his suspicions. This was a dead end. R655. Chapter 4489. Long Kiba could only helplessly shrug at Qing Haonan. However, before he could say anything, a sharp and terrifying howl suddenly erupted from beside him. Qing Haonan's body suddenly emitted a thick layer of black aura. His state was the same as when he was fighting against Lin Yi. Taking advantage of the fact that no one had any intention of surrounding him, he broke into a run without saying anything. Bang! Qing Haonan wasn't an idiot. He knew that there was no turning back now that the situation had developed to this point. He definitely wouldn't be able to fool everyone today. Once his identity as an evil cultivator was confirmed, he would definitely be surrounded by everyone. Let alone the fact that Qing Haonan was currently exhausted, even if he was at his peak condition, facing the pursuit of so many nascent soul stage experts, he would definitely die without a grave. There wouldn't even be a chance of survival. As a result, his only path of survival was to escape before everyone's killing intent fully manifested. As long as a top-tier expert like Boundless Sea didn't chase after him, he still had a sliver of a chance at survival. Seeing Qing Haonan rush out of the crowd and instantly escape from Magic Cold Plaza, disappearing from everyone's sight, Long Kiba was dumbfounded. Everyone present was dumbfounded as well. They were stunned for a moment before they realized what had happened. Fuck, he was fleeing to avoid punishment. Seeing this, a few cultivators in the periphery hurriedly chased after him. However, most of the people present were indifferent towards this. After all, Qing Haonan's strength was there for all to see. Don't look at how exhausted he was. From the astonishing speed at which he escaped, it could be seen that this guy still had room to struggle on his deathbed. With the strength of most of the people present, let alone the fact that they couldn't catch up to Qing Haonan's speed, even if they caught up, they definitely wouldn't be able to beat him. In his normal state, Qing Haonan could easily beat the crap out of them, let alone the crazy Qing Haonan who had turned completely black. It was true that the evil cultivator had to be killed, but no one was stupid. They wouldn't throw away their lives just to chase after an evil cultivator. Didn't they see that even a top-tier expert like Boundless Sea had no intention of attacking? With Boundless Sea's strength, of course he could beat Qing Haonan. However, right now was the crucial time to consolidate the fruits of victory. How could he chase after him? What if Zhao Bufan and the others took advantage of them? When he returned, it would be too late. If Boundless Sea didn't chase, Zhao Bufan and the others wouldn't chase either. Boundless Sea was worried about them, but they were also worried about Boundless Sea. Out of all the people present, the only one who could pose a fatal threat to Qing Haonan and have the heart to go after him was probably Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi frowned, suppressing the thought in the end. There was no other way. If he chased after Qing Haonan, no matter if he caught up or not, Boundless Sea would hit him while he was down. He would seize the opportunity to say that he was also an evil cultivator and ran away with Qing Haonan. In the past, no one would have believed this kind of bullshit. But now that Qing Haonan had confessed without being pressed, if Lin Yi couldn't clear his name, it would be the same as having yellow mud falling in his pants. Even if it wasn't shit, it would still be shit. Lin Yi didn't really care. With his background, as long as he spent a bit of time, it wouldn't be hard to clear his name. However, this would definitely implicate the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Regardless of whether or not they could recover their reputation, their hard-earned position as the head of the escort agency would be gone. Perhaps Boundless Sea had purposely tied the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency together for this purpose. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't let him succeed, even though he had made the decision to bide his time. However, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. Even he wasn't completely confident in dealing with an expert evil cultivator like Qing Haonan. This time, not only was his opponent exhausted, he was also injured. This was the perfect opportunity to kill him, but he could only let it go. It was a bit of a pity. At this moment, everyone's gazes fell on Long Kiba. Qing Haonan's sudden escape had pushed him, the head escort of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, into the heart of the struggle. This situation was like Boundless Sea had set up a pot of oil, but Qing Haonan had casually pushed him down. Helpless, wanting to cry, but no tears came out. This was Long Kiba's current situation. It was rare for him to ascend to the throne of the No. 2 Escort Agency, but he hadn't even had the time to sit down properly. He hadn't even had the time to be happy when this throne was swapped with a tiger stool, and he had to sit down on it. Long Kiba's current mood was so bad that he couldn't even cry. Under everyone's gazes, Long Kiba sat down on the ground as if he had lost his parents. At this moment, no matter what he said, it was pointless. He couldn't run away like Qing Haonan. After all, he had the entire Dragon Boat Escort Agency behind him. This was the foundation he had painstakingly built up. He couldn't just give it up, so he could only wait for Boundless Sea's verdict. Now everyone is very clear that Qing Haonan is an evil cultivator. There's no doubt about this. The Dragon Boat Escort Agency actually let an evil cultivator participate in the competition. Where does that leave our Southern Continent Escort Agency alliance? Could it be that our Southern Continent Escort Agency alliance has fallen to this level? Have we fallen to the same level as evil cultivators? Boundless Sea suddenly occupied the moral high ground. In a daze, he seemed to have returned to being the high-spirited tyrant of the escort agency. In the chaotic waters of the Southern Continent, morality was worthless. However, in some special situations, it could be used to kidnap everyone and become a sharp weapon that no one could resist. Boundless Sea clearly understood this well. At this moment, even Zhao Bufan and the others couldn't interrupt. If they followed Boundless Sea's words, they would become his followers. However, if they went against Boundless Sea, they would be openly covering up for an evil cultivator. They couldn't bear such a big label, so they could only turn a blind eye to it. Among the judges, only Qi Mingyuan continued to frown at Boundless Sea coldly. However, he didn't rashly say anything. After all, they were talking about the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. There was no need for him to take the initiative. It wouldn't be too late to counterattack when the other side made trouble. Facing the righteous Boundless Sea, Long Kiba couldn't say anything. Right now, he only regretted one thing. It wasn't allying with the Poison Eye mercenaries, nor letting Wu Baoyang and Sheng Haonan participate, but going to the Four Seas Escort Agency to visit Boundless Sea that night. If he hadn't taken the initiative to give Boundless Sea a handle, even if he didn't have the chance to deal with the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and Ling Yi, even if he couldn't get into the top 5, he could at least retreat unscathed. It was much better than being trampled on like this. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Chapter 4490. So now, the fate of Long Kiba and the entire Dragon Boat Escort Agency was in Boundless Sea's hands. He was the only person who had absolute authority in this situation. Whether the Dragon Boat Escort Agency lived or died depended on his decision. Reading novels on the internet, using an evil cultivator to fight in the ring is an insult to the entire South Continent Escort Bureau Alliance. It's intolerable and unforgivable. Boundless Sea spoke harshly, scaring Long Kiba so much that his hands and feet turned cold. Only then did he announce, "Right now, as the main judge of the conference, I will revoke all of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency's results in this competition. However, since you guys aren't evil cultivators and were only deceived by others, we will temporarily retain the qualifications of the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. We will see your performance in the next conference." As soon as these words left his mouth, the entire Cold Magic Plaza burst into discussion. As for the ashen-faced Long Kiba, he was overjoyed. He looked at Boundless Sea in disbelief. Only his results were cancelled, and not his name forever? Boundless Sea's previous forceful actions made it seem as if he was going to fight to the death with the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. Who would have thought that he would let the Dragon Boat Escort Agency off so easily? This was truly unexpected. "Thank you, Chief Judge, for your magnanimity. We were deceived by these two evil cultivators. It was I, the Chief Escort, who failed to recognize people. Our Dragon Boat Escort Agency is willing to accept the punishment." Long Kiba came back to his senses and hurriedly expressed his thanks. This result was already a blessing in disguise for him. It was indeed a pity to lose the second place, but since he had the Heavens Equal Escort Agency to accompany him, it was still somewhat comforting. It wasn't too bad. Can you be more careful and change for the better? It all depends on your performance. Boundless Sea nodded his head, acting like a leader. Looking at this strange scene, Qi Mingyuan could not help but frown. What the hell was this guy trying to do? His intuition told him that Boundless Sea's actions weren't that simple. There had to be a deeper meaning. A stick in one hand and a carrot in the other. Long Kiba and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency were kicked off the stage by him, yet they still have to be grateful to him. Boundless Sea's methods have reached perfection. Lin Yi smiled faintly from afar. Boundless Sea said it all depended on his future performance. In fact, it was like a sharp sword hanging over Long Kiba's head, forcing him to bow his head. He could only obediently be his underling, or else this sword could fall at any moment. From this point alone, Boundless Sea's methods could be considered brilliant. "I just want to know what this guy is up to now. Why did you tie our Heavens Equal Escort Agency to the Dragon Boat Escort Agency?" "The Dragon Boat Escort Agency has evil cultivators, but we don't. Isn't this nonsense?" Qi Wenhan was still frowning. "Hee, the dagger will be revealed at the end of the map. You'll know when you keep watching." Lin Yi shook his head indifferently. Sure enough, after Boundless Sea successfully grasped the right to speak through the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, he immediately struck while the iron was hot and turned to the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. He looked at Qi Mingyuan with malicious intent and said, "Chief Escort Qi, the Dragon Boat Escort Agency has already admitted to their crimes. You saw how I dealt with it. You just have to hand over the heretic cultivator and cancel your results. I believe that you're a smart person. Why don't you think about it?" Lin Yi was overjoyed. So this was Boundless Sea's true intention. No wonder he treated the Dragon Boat Escort Agency lightly. Apart from making it easier for him to control the agency in the future. Apart from making it easier for him to control the Dragon Boat Escort Agency in the future, this was the more important goal. To split the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. More accurately speaking, it was to split him and Qi Mingyuan. Without a doubt, the evil cultivator that Boundless Sea was talking about was none other than Lin Yi. Think about it? Qi Mingyuan sneered disdainfully. Think about what? Think about whether or not I should listen to your bullshit? Boundless Sea, you want to tie my Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Dragon Boat Escort Agency together? Don't you think too highly of yourself? You. Boundless Sea suddenly choked. He didn't think that Qi Mingyuan was this domineering before, but now that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency had reached the top, he didn't think that Qi Mingyuan would be so overbearing. Qi Mingyuan didn't even put him in his eyes. In the past, if Qi Mingyuan dared to talk to him like this, Boundless Sea would have already stepped on him. As the overlord of the escort agency, he had the confidence to do so. However, things were different now. In name, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was the overlord of the escort agencies. Before confirming that he was a heretic cultivator, Boundless Sea couldn't do anything to him. Qi Mingyuan, I'm giving you a way out of this embarrassing situation. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. You used a heretic to cheat and get points. What's there to be arrogant about? Boundless Sea's expression changed. Heretic cultivator? Humph, that's quite a big label. Let me ask you, who in the Heavens Equal Escort Agency is a heretic? Qi Mingyuan sneered. He obviously knew that Boundless Sea was referring to Ling Wan. He didn't dare say anything else, but if someone said that Ling Wan was a heretic like Wu Baoliang and Cheng Haonan, he wouldn't believe it. Ling Wan. A sinister expression flashed across Boundless Sea's face. He shouted, "You dare say that Ling Wan isn't a heretic?" For a moment, everyone looked at Lin Yi with suspicion and scrutiny. Wu Baoliang, Cheng Haonan, and this Ling Wan could be said to be the most impressive Golden Core experts in this year's conference. Their strength was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Now that it was proven that the first two were heretics, what about this Ling Wan? This sort of thinking made everyone naturally stand against Lin Yi. Boundless Sea had perfected this move of pushing the boat with the current without leaving a trace. Qi Mingyuan was about to retort, but at this moment, Lin Yi walked out from below the stage. He raised his head and glanced at Boundless Sea. He curled his lips and said, "How can you tell that I'm a heretic?" Humph. You still want to quibble now? Your moves are the same as Wu Baoliang's. If you're not a heretic, then what are you? Could it be that we proper cultivators can already use the skills of heretics? Boundless Sea looked down disdainfully. Everyone present nodded. Evil cultivators and righteous cultivators were two completely different systems. Just like how evil cultivators could not use martial skills of righteous cultivators could not use martial skills of evil cultivators. This was a well-known principle. Although the moves Lin Yi used just now seemed a little different, they were essentially the same as Wu Baoliang's moves. Boundless Sea's words were indeed very suspicious. Let me ask you a question first. Did you eat too many retard pills? Lin Yi smiled and didn't answer. Boundless Sea stared blankly. Even though he didn't know what a retard was, he could tell from Lin Yi's mocking expression that it wasn't anything good. His expression immediately turned ugly. Chapter 4491. Just because it's the same move, does that mean you're a heretic? That heretic used a normal punch. Does that mean you can't use it? Otherwise, you'll be a heretic too. Lin Yi sneered. Everyone looked at each other. Even though the good and the evil could not coexist and martial arts could not be used, Lin Yi's explanation was not wrong: sophistry. One is a normal punch, the other is a proper martial art. Are they the same thing? Boundless Sea exploded with anger. His face was full of murderous intent. Cheng Haonan has already run away. You're not running either. Do you really think our South Continent Escort Agency alliance has fallen to the point of associating with heretics? You don't even know how to write the word death. I don't know how to write the word death. Do you? Lin Yi's expression was completely fearless. It was as if he did not care about Boundless Sea's accusations at all. He even had the mood to ridicule Boundless Sea. Boundless Sea was furious. If he did not care about his status, he would have personally taken the place of the will of heaven. With his shrewdness, he would not lose his composure just because of a few words from Lin Yi. The main reason was that his and the Four Seas Escort Agency's current awkward situation was all caused by Lin Yi. How could he not hate him? Now that there was a rare opportunity to kill Lin Yi to vent his anger, he could not ask for more. However, Boundless Sea did not act impulsively because he did not know what Qi Mingyuan's reaction would be. It would be fine if he just stood by and watched. But what if he attacked to protect Lin Yi? It would be a chaotic battle. The situation would definitely go out of control. That would not benefit Boundless Sea at all. Now that the right to speak was in his hands, he did not want to take such an unnecessary risk. Moreover, if he killed Lin Yi, Qi Mingyuan would insist that he killed him to silence him. That would be troublesome. No matter what you say, it's useless. This chief judge will not argue with you. Boundless Sea turned to everyone and said loudly, Lin Yi used the same martial art as Wu Baoyang. It is enough to prove that he is the same as Wu Baoyang and Cheng Haonan. They are all evil cultivators. Everyone can see this with their own eyes. It is indisputable. He was afraid that something might happen if this continued. The longer the night dragged on, the more dreams could arise. Boundless Sea was prepared to seal his coffin. After all, Lin Yi was different from Wu Baoyang and Cheng Haonan. He had 30% speculation and 70% slander. He had to strike while the iron was hot. Wait. Qi Wenhan suddenly stepped forward. In a clear voice, he said, Ling Yi is an inner disciple of the three big pavilions of the North Island, and he has the mission token of the three big pavilions of the North Island. This time, he traveled thousands of miles to the South Continent just to kill the evil cultivator Wu Baoyang. Let me ask you, how could such a person be an evil cultivator? As soon as he finished speaking, everyone exploded into an uproar, and they couldn't help but discuss animatedly. It turns out that he's a disciple of the three pavilions of the North Island. Then he can't be an evil cultivator. Many people immediately nodded. Not bad. Although the strength of the North Island is not as good as that of the South Continent, the cohesion is extremely high, and the high level of the three pavilions of the North Island is also full of experts. There are even profound ascension stage and even mountain opening stage giants, and they have always considered themselves as a righteous sect. How could this kind of place accept an evil cultivator as a disciple? Those who knew a little more about the North Island were even more convinced. Yes, a place like the North Island can't be compared to our side. We often have evil cultivators here, but the North Island is well governed by the three pavilions. Let alone their inner disciples, even the surrounding cultivator tribes don't have any soil for evil cultivators to live in. Everyone agreed. Hearing everyone's discussion, Boundless Sea's expression couldn't help but change. If this continued, it would get out of control. Even he didn't know that Lin Yi was a disciple of the three pavilions of the North Island. After all, Lin Yi had only mentioned his background to Qi Wenhan and a few others when he first arrived at the Verdant Arc Sea territory. After that, he never mentioned it again. Even if Boundless Sea sent people to investigate, it wouldn't be easy. You can't say that. Even if Ling Yi is a disciple of the three pavilions of the North Island, it doesn't mean that he definitely isn't an evil cultivator. Boundless Sea immediately rejected. Oh. Then according to you, Boundless Sea, our South Island Escort Agency Alliance wouldn't be in cahoots with evil cultivators. Are you saying that the three pavilions of the North Island would actually tolerate evil cultivators? Why don't we write a letter to the North Island and explain your doubts to the higher-ups of the North Island? Qi Mingyuan slanted his eyes and teased. That's not what I meant. Boundless Sea couldn't help but shrink back. Don't look at how he was strutting around the southern continent's waters, looking like an overlord, but compared to the overlords of the northern island's three great pavilions, he wasn't even worth a fart. Any one of their higher-ups could crush him to death in a matter of minutes. You keep saying that even if he's a disciple of the three pavilions of the North Island, it doesn't mean that he isn't an evil cultivator. If that's not what you mean, then what do you mean? Qi Mingyuan's expression was unkind. According to my investigation, that Wu Baoliang was once a disciple of the North Island. Since he's an evil cultivator, how can you prove that Ling Yi isn't? Boundless Sea snorted coldly, then added, this chief judge has always admired the three pavilions of the North Island, but for such a huge force like the three pavilions, it's normal for one or two scum to sneak in without noticing. Wu Baoliang is clear proof. Everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Today's matter was getting more and more interesting. It turned out that even this Wu Baoliang was a disciple of the three pavilions of the North Island. It was really unexpected. Wait, Boundless Sea, you said you investigated? Qi Mingyuan's eyes suddenly narrowed. This means that you already knew about Wu Baoliang's background, but didn't want to stop him as soon as possible. Instead, you sat and watched Wu Baoliang go up to the arena? Tell me, what's your motive for doing this? For a moment, everyone's gazes towards Boundless Sea became playful again. Anyone with a quick brain could figure out what was behind this kind of thing. However, as the chief judge of the conference, Boundless Sea kept saying that he was fair and just, but in the end, he still did this kind of thing. That was too hypocritical. In the southern continent sea region, people would worship a bold and ambitious person, but if it was a hypocrite who said one thing in front of others and another behind their backs, that person would be even more despised than a real villain. Boundless Sea suddenly sweated like rain. Just now, all he wanted to do was pull Ling Yi into the water, but he forgot such an obvious flaw. He quickly defended himself. My previous investigation only found that Wu Baoliang was a disciple of the three pavilions of the North Island. I can't confirm that he's an evil cultivator. In order to avoid wrongly accusing a good person, before I have enough evidence, I, as the chief judge of the conference, of course can't casually suspect others. Chapter 4492. This was a reasonable explanation, but it was clear from everyone's expressions that they wouldn't believe it so easily. In the southern continent, where conspiracy theories were prevalent, anyone who believed that Boundless Sea didn't have a single bit of selfishness wouldn't be able to survive until now. Since you're so cautious, why are you saying that our Ling Yi is a heretic just because of some groundless nonsense? Below the stage, Qi Wenhan scoffed and sneered. And your logic doesn't make sense at all. If he and Wu Baoliang are both evil cultivators who escaped from the three pavilions of North Island, then why would they come all the way to this South State Escort Agency event to fight to the death? Do you think everyone is as stupid as you? Boundless Sea couldn't help but be furious at being mocked by a junior like Qi Wenhan. However, he suppressed his anger and didn't directly attack. He said maliciously, "This is a matter between heretics. If you want to know, you'll have to ask them themselves. If I were to guess, it's most likely because he practices the same mental cultivation method as Wu Baoliang, so he silenced them to hide his identity as a heretic. You're slandering me." Qi Wenhan was furious. Boundless Sea was determined to convict Ling Yi of being a heretic. He wanted to kill him with just a few words. He was sinister and malicious. I think you're the one who's spouting nonsense. You don't even know that a heretic managed to become one of the higher-ups of your escort agency. Even now, you still dare to publicly protect a heretic. Do you really think that our Southern Continent Escort Agency Alliance can't deal with your Heavens Equal Escort Agency? Boundless Sea glared at him coldly. Qi Wenhan couldn't hold back his anger anymore. Even his father, Qi Mingyuan, clenched his fists. The entire Heavens Equal Escort Agency was united against a common enemy. They just needed to give the order and they would fight on the spot. Magic Cold Plaza was in a state of panic, as if a storm was brewing. Right at this moment, among the representatives of the Chamber of Commerce beside the judging panel, someone suddenly stood up. He cleared his throat and interrupted in a clear voice, "Can everyone listen to what I have to say?" Everyone's eyes immediately focused on this person. Some sharp-eyed people recognized him at a glance. This person was the newly appointed shopkeeper of the Hong Merchant Association's Arc branch, Honest Chai. As the second largest chamber of commerce in the 5 Great Heaven Stage Islands, the Hong Chamber of Commerce was a force that could not be ignored no matter where it went. Businessmen paid particular attention to harmony and wealth. Not to mention the huge financial resources under its command, just the various forces and relationships it had with it was enough to make anyone fearful. Offending the Hong Chamber of Commerce. It was absolutely not as simple as offending a Chamber of Commerce. It was practically equivalent to offending a large number of top-notch powers, and there was no lack of super overlords that occupied an island. As a result, even though Honest Chai was just a small branch shopkeeper, his presence here represented the entire Hong Chamber of Commerce. His every word and action represented the Hong Chamber of Commerce's attitude. Even Boundless Sea didn't dare to look down on him. He could only lower himself and fawn over him. After all, including the 4 Seas Escort Agency, more than half of the business of the escort agencies in the South Continent came from these chambers of commerce. The Hong Chamber of Commerce, as one of the most prominent, was their financial backer. If they didn't serve this rich man well, wouldn't they have nothing to eat in the future? Seeing Honest Chai suddenly stand up, Boundless Sea's heart suddenly thumped. He had a bad premonition, but the symbolic meaning of the other party's identity was too great, so he did not dare to forcefully interrupt him. He could only tactfully say, "Shopkeeper Chai, could I trouble you to wait for a moment? Business matters can wait until we have dealt with our family scandal. Let's discuss the business in detail after that. Chief Escort High misunderstands. What I want to talk about isn't business. It has to do with young hero Ling Yi's identity." Honest Chai glanced at Boundless Sea. Without waiting for him to speak, he immediately turned to everyone and announced, "There is something that everyone might not know. I represent the Hong Chamber of Commerce to clarify that young hero Ling Yi is our Hong Chamber of Commerce's honorary vice chairman." Honorary vice chairman? The crowd erupted once again. Everyone's faces were filled with shock and disbelief. This ordinary-looking Ling Yi was actually the Hong Chamber of Commerce's honorary vice chairman? With this kind of status, no matter where he went, he would be a true big shot. Truly, you can't judge a book by its cover. However, at the same time, everyone had the same question in their hearts. Why would such a big shot run over to fight for the Heavens Equal Escort Agency? Did he have nothing better to do after eating his fill? The thoughts of big shots were truly unfathomable. While everyone was still in shock, Boundless Sea was completely dumbfounded. In the investigation report on Lin Yi a few days ago, there was no mention of this guy having such a dazzling halo. With the status of Hong Chamber of Commerce's honorary vice chairman, normal people would definitely want the whole world to know about it. But this guy, from start to finish, didn't say a word. It was as if he couldn't see the light of day. Fuck, how could there be such a low-key monster in this world? Everyone, think about it. Our Hong Chamber of Commerce is open for business. How could we let a heretic become our honorary vice chairman? Honest Chai looked at Boundless Sea with an unfriendly gaze. Even though he was a coward, Lin Yi was his benefactor and benefactor. In the future, he would still need to rely on Lin Yi and Hong Zhong's protection. That bastard Boundless Sea actually dared to slander him in front of everyone. If he didn't say a word, then he would really be ungrateful. With this, the situation was completely reversed. Everyone looked at Boundless Sea with doubtful gazes. Previously, when Qi Wenhan had proven that Lin Yi was a disciple of the Northern Island's 3 great pavilions, Boundless Sea could still say that Wu Baoliang was also a disciple of the Northern Island's 3 great pavilions. But now, Honest Chai had proven that Ling Wen was the Hong Chamber of Commerce's honorary vice-chairman. He couldn't say that Wu Baoliang was also the Hong Chamber of Commerce's honorary vice-chairman, right? Even if Boundless Sea had 100 guts, he wouldn't dare to make up such a rumor. On the other hand, Lin Yi, seeing Qi Wenhan, Qi Mingyuan, and Honest Chai stand up for him at this crucial moment, not hesitating to shed all pretense of cordiality with Boundless Sea, made him feel gratified. But in reality, even if Qi Wenhan and the others didn't do this, Lin Yi alone was enough to prove himself. The reason why he had remained silent was because the more intense the situation became, the more humiliated Boundless Sea would be. Even though the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency could rise, as the old hegemon, the 4 Seas Escort Agency's prestige still remained. Right now, Lin Yi wanted to trample on this little bit of prestige and make Boundless Sea the laughingstock of everyone. If that happened, then he wouldn't have any prestige to speak of. And Boundless Sea dared to have crooked ideas against him today. It was destined that he would be humiliated. Chapter 4493. Ling Yi, although so many people are trying to exonerate you, you used the same martial technique as Wu Baoliang. This is definitely suspicious. If you really want to clear your name, you have to prove in front of everyone that you are not a heretic cultivator. Despite his anger and shock, Boundless Sea could only continue speaking. With a cold expression, he said, "If I can't prove it, then the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's results will be fake and won't count." This was Boundless Sea's current predicament. He had no way out. The other escort agencies were easy to deal with, but if he didn't get rid of Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and let the other side become the overlord of the escort agencies, he wouldn't be able to live a good life in the future. Accusing Lin Yi of being a heretic was something he came up with after watching Lin Yi and Wu Baoliang's match. Honestly speaking, he wasn't very confident, but he couldn't back down now. He had to believe that Lin Yi was a heretic. Sure. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He raised his hand and threw a frenzy fist at the stage under Boundless Sea's feet. The tightly guarded stage shook violently, almost causing Boundless Sea to lose his footing and make a fool of himself. He said calmly, "This is called Frenzy Fist. That move just now is called Thousand Frenzy Fiery Fist. Are you satisfied now?" This time, everyone was in an uproar. The might of the violent flaming Thousand Bursting Fist was too exaggerated, and it was exactly the same as Wu Baoliang's violent Sand Thousand Bursting Fist. It was normal for them to have doubts in their hearts, but this violent flaming fist did not require any eyesight to be able to tell that it was a standard fire attribute martial skill. How is this possible? Boundless Sea was going crazy. It didn't matter how many people stood up for Lin Yi. It didn't matter how many halos Lin Yi had around him. He could think of a way to defend himself, even if he couldn't kill Lin Yi and the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency in the end. However, as long as the public still felt suspicious, he would have profited. After all, he didn't need to pay any price. But now, Lin Yi had clearly used a fire-type skill. He used his actions to dispel all suspicions. What else could he do? What's impossible? I'm a cultivator with a fire spirit root. If you still want to say that I'm a heretical cultivator, then don't blame me. Since there are so many people here, they should be the same, Lin Yi said lightly. That's right, then we're all evil cultivators. I wonder if Chief Escort Hai is one of us? Qi Wenhan laughed in agreement. The others also laughed and nodded. Everyone knew that Boundless Sea had been trampled on instead of harming others. He had made a huge fool of himself. Boundless Sea wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He wanted to slap himself in the face. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have been so obsessed with erasing the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and Dragon Boat Escort Agency. Otherwise, with his contribution in reporting the Dragon Boat Escort Agency, not only could the Four Seas Escort Agency return to the ranks of the top 5 escort agencies, but it could also guarantee a certain degree of authority. At that time, Qi Mingyuan would become the new overlord of the escort agency. Because of this, the public did not dare to target him too much. Although he had lost his former prestige, the situation was not too bad. But now, although his Four Seas escort agency had returned to the ranks of the top 5 escort agencies, everyone had seen that he had slandered the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Just this point alone was enough to completely erase the merit he had received for reporting the Dragon Boat Escort Agency. If he wanted to use this merit to make a fuss in the future, he would not be able to do so. Not only would Qi Mingyuan not agree, but even Zhao Bufan and the others wouldn't agree. Especially when facing Qi Mingyuan in the future. He would naturally be in the wrong. When Qi Mingyuan stabilized his position as the overlord of the escort agency, who knew how much suffering would be waiting for him, however, even at this point, Boundless Sea still refused to give up. He actually wanted to defend himself and save the situation. However, Qi Mingyuan would not give him any more chances. Chief Escort High, this year's Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference has ended. According to the rules, I should be the judge for this year's conference. Should I be the one to announce the conclusion? Qi Mingyuan laughed and pushed Boundless Sea to the side. Boundless Sea staggered and almost rolled off the stage. Boundless Sea's blood boiled. He could not help but want to explode on the spot. As the overlord of the escort agency for many years, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? However, when he saw Qi Mingyuan's faint smile, as well as the playful gazes of Zhao Bufan and the others, it was as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over his head. He could only choose to shut his mouth. There was nothing he could do. These people clearly had unfriendly expressions. It looked like they were waiting for him to make a mistake. If he really did explode on the spot, not only would it be useless, he might even lose his position as one of the top 5 escort agencies. After all, the present was different from the past. His Four Seas escort agency had become a thing of the past. From today onwards, the Southern Continent Escort Agency Alliance had changed. Helpless, Boundless Sea could only swallow his anger and walk to the side resentfully. It was better to live than to die. Even if he knew that his future wouldn't be good, he wasn't willing to give up his position as one of the 5 great escort agency. Otherwise, if the Four Seas escort agency's massive foundation were to shrink in the future, it wouldn't be a joke. It might even fall apart like Far Pass escort agency. This guy really knows how to endure. Qi Mingyuan glanced at Boundless Sea with some pity. Then, he ignored him and began to read the closing speech to everyone. The closing speech was similar to the previous grand conferences. There was nothing special about it. The only difference was that in the past, it had always been Boundless Sea who read the speech, but now it was Qi Mingyuan who did it. At this moment, looking at the high-spirited Qi Mingyuan on the stage, everyone understood one thing. The Southern Continent Escort Agency Alliance's new era had begun. A new era belonging to the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was born. It didn't matter if the crowd believed it or not, they couldn't change this trend. The era wouldn't change because of their will. Only by adapting to the new era could they ensure that they wouldn't be left behind. Those with a bit of brains quickly realized that in the future, Magic Cold Sea's position as the center of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency would definitely be replaced by Velvet Arc Sea. After all, that was where the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's headquarters were located. If nothing unexpected happened, the next Southern Continent Escort Agency Grand Conference would also be held in Velvet Arc City. It was unlikely that Magic Cold City would ever see such a grand event again. The change of an era came so suddenly that it caught everyone off guard. However, when one thought about it carefully, it seemed to be so reasonable. Too bad we didn't get to take down that bastard Boundless Sea. Qi Wenhan happily watched his father's awe-inspiring appearance on the stage. He couldn't help but look resentfully at Boundless Sea, who had been squeezed to the side. Chapter 4494. This time, Boundless Sea wasn't just targeting Lin Yi, but also the entire Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Now that they had finally taken control of the situation, they didn't know how to deal with this bastard. It was truly annoying. This guy's a wily old fox. There's no way he'll give himself away in a situation like this. If he's a coward, there's really nothing we can do. Lin Yi nodded, a little regretful. Then, we can't just let him go like this, right? Isn't that too easy for this old bastard? Qi Wenhan was still indignant. As long as he doesn't make a mistake, there's nothing we can do about it. Lin Yi smiled helplessly. From this, it was clear that Boundless Sea was a wily old fox. Even though he was clearly targeting him and the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, he kept saying that he was doing it for the sake of justice. Even if he made a mistake, there was no way to criticize him. No, I can't take this lying down. I have to think of the fastest way to get back at him. Qi Wenhan stared at Boundless Sea and swore to himself. He wouldn't repay evil with good. That was the style of a hypocrite. Vengeance for vengeance was his personality. He was a man of true character. Brother Qi, you don't need to be so angry. Right now, you're not suitable to deal with someone like Boundless Sea. You're not high enough either. It'll be easy for people to gossip. Let's leave this matter to Head Escort Qi. I trust that he won't disappoint us, Lin Yi advised with a smile. This was the truth. Boundless Sea excelled at putting on airs. There were only two ways to deal with this type of person. Either your absolute strength was much stronger than him, just like those high and mighty East Continent academies that disregarded the rules and could easily crush him, or you could fight poison with poison and use the same method to force him to reveal his flaws. Other than that, it would be very difficult to gain the upper hand with any simple and crude method. For Qi Wenhan, he clearly couldn't do either of these two methods. In comparison, his father Qi Mingyuan might be able to do the second. After all, he was an ambitious and ruthless character. His shrewdness were much deeper than his hot-blooded young master. With his current position as the head of the escort agency, dealing with Boundless Sea shouldn't be a problem. That's true. Dad is much better than me in this aspect. Only then did Qi Wenhan dispel the idea. Professional matters should be left to professionals. If he rashly interfered, it would only ruin things. It was not that he did not understand this principle. After Qi Mingyuan finished reading the closing speech, the 3-day event of the South Continent Escort Agency finally came to an end. The people who came from all over to watch the event dispersed. The various legendary events that happened in this event would certainly be spread throughout the South Continent Sea through their mouths. It was foreseeable that the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and Ling Yi's name would inevitably become the topic of conversation after a meal. Ling Yi would become a legend in the Southern Continent Sea, and the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency behind him would usher in a new era. After the meeting ended, the first thing everyone in the Equal Heaven Escort Agency wanted to do was celebrate. The Heaven's Equal Escort Agency had historically become the overlord of the South Continent Escort Agency. Everyone, from the chief escort Qi Mingyuan to the ordinary little escorts, felt as if they were in a dream. After the event ended, the thing they did the most was to pinch themselves as hard as they could. The more it hurt, the happier they were. Looking at this group of people who seemed to have some sort of mental illness, Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry. Although even he did not expect to achieve such amazing results, he was an outsider after all. Even if he had obtained first place, it was not a big deal. If one was not from the South Continent Sea, they would not be able to truly understand the great significance this represented. However, this did not prevent Lin Yi from becoming the protagonist of the victory party. It could be said that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's current achievements were all thanks to Lin Yi. Apart from dealing with Wu Baoyang, Lin Yi had originally wanted to be an external helper in the South Continent Escort Agency's grand meeting and help out a little when necessary. In the end, he did not expect to become the main force. More than 80% of the points obtained by the agency were directly or indirectly related to him. If one were to compare it to a battlefield, Lin Yi would have simply raised his blade and chopped through the enemy's commander and his minions, killing his way through the enemy's ranks all on his own. As the greatest contributor, Lin Yi was naturally the focus of the victory party. Everyone in the Heavens Equal Escort Agency came to toast him one by one. As for Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan, apart from expressing their gratitude, they also announced a major event that could change the fate of the entire Heavens Equal Escort Agency. The father and son decided to gift 20% of the entire Heavens Equal Escort Agency's assets to Lin Yi unconditionally in the form of shares. When the words came out of Qi Mingyuan's mouth, even the originally lively celebration couldn't help but become silent for a moment. Everyone was stunned for a long time before they finally reacted. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with admiration and respect as they looked at Lin Yi. Before this, Lin Yi was the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's benefactor. He was the agency's eternal honorary head. Although everyone was in awe of him, they did not feel any pressure from Lin Yi. After all, the honorary head was still an outsider. However, things were different now. After receiving 20% of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's shares, Lin Yi was no longer an outsider to everyone. He had become the third owner of the escort agency after Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan. Not only was everyone shocked speechless, but even Lin Yi himself could not help but be a little stunned when he heard this. He looked at Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan in confusion. Why did they suddenly think of giving him 20% of the shares? How could I accept this? Lin Yi reacted and hurriedly refused. If it was just spirit jades, he could even accept a few 100,000 spirit jades. After all, he had already made up his mind to refine a batch of pills for the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. He would not let them suffer any losses. However, 20% of the shares was a completely different matter. Not to mention the fact that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was bound to soar into the sky in the future. Even before this, 20% of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency's shares was an astronomical figure. After all, this was one of the top 5 escort agencies. 20% of the shares would be worth at least 1 million spirit jades. In time, this figure would skyrocket. Brother Ling, don't be in such a hurry to refuse. This is the decision that my father, Uncle Song, and I have come to after discussing it. It is the result of careful consideration and is not an impulsive decision. This is a good thing for both of us, Qi Wenhan said with a smile as he put an arm around Lin Yi's shoulder. Our 1152 latest update, please read. Chapter 4495. That's right. With young hero Ling's great contributions, if we really want to thank you properly, even 1 million spiritual jades would be far from enough. However, the escort agency is in dire need of spiritual jades right now, and we won't be able to gather so many spiritual jades in a short period of time. Rather than forcing it, why don't we just let young hero Ling truly become a part of the escort agency? Otherwise, the title of honorary escort leader would be somewhat undeserved, Qi Mingyuan advised sincerely. Head escort leader, Brother Qi, you're treating me like an outsider. With our friendship, is there really a need for so many benefits? Furthermore, the reason I fought for the agency this time was because of Wu Baoyang. Now that Wu Baoyang has been beheaded, I can also retire after completing my mission. You really don't have to do this. Lin Yi shook his head repeatedly. Young hero Ling, everyone knows that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency relied on your own strength to ascend to the position of hegemon of the escort agency. This is no longer just about you, it concerns the entire agency's reputation. If we mistreat you, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency will be ridiculed behind our backs. Qi Mingyuan's face turned serious, and he continued, furthermore, young hero Ling, we're only giving you 20% of the shares. Not only can we get closer to each other, but it also won't cause the agency to suffer any losses." At this point, Lin Yi didn't know how to refuse. He couldn't possibly disregard the reputation of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and forcefully reject the 20% shares, could he? Lin Yi could remain unscathed by doing this, but it would be troublesome for Qi Mingyuan and Qi Wenhan. After all, they had to thank Lin Yi heavily this time. If Lin Yi didn't accept the shares, they could only give him spiritual jades. However, the problem was that they didn't have that many spiritual jades. After all, Lin Yi wasn't a stubborn person. He wouldn't put his friends in such an awkward situation. Furthermore, just as Qi Mingyuan said, even if he accepted the 20% shares, as long as he didn't touch them and didn't actively participate in the agency's decision-making, he wouldn't let the agency suffer any losses. It was the best of both worlds. All right then, but I have to make something clear. I can accept this 20% share, but I want to hand it over to Brother Qi. After all, I won't be staying in the South Continent for too long, and I won't be able to participate in the affairs of the escort agency in the future, Lin Yi said helplessly. Well said, well said. Come, let's raise our glasses. To the new owner of our escort agency. Qi Mingyuan was overjoyed and immediately asked everyone to toast. The atmosphere became warm again. When Qi Wenhan first proposed to give Lin Yi 20% of the firm's shares, he was still a little worried that Lin Yi would take advantage of the situation. Losing some spiritual jades was not a big deal, but the key was that he would not be able to escape when the time came, and it would affect the decision-making of the escort agency, which would be troublesome. However, now that Lin Yi had expressed his intention to return the favor, his worries immediately vanished. 20% of the shares were handed over to Qi Wenhan for full custody. Furthermore, he had made it clear that he would not be involved in the affairs of the escort agency. This meant that Lin Yi would only be a boss who did not have to do anything in the future. As long as he paid his dividends regularly, everything would be fine. This was the best outcome for the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Not only did they not have to lose anything, but they could also further bind Lin Yi. Not to mention Lin Yi's various magical abilities, just the Hong Chamber of Commerce behind him was enough to greatly benefit the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. After all, now was the time for the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency to take advantage of the situation, and Lin Yi was backed by the rich and powerful Hong Chamber of Commerce. Even the gale that could allow it to soar up 90,000 miles in one go was the only reward. The 20% of the firm's shares he gave out was already more than worth it. Since everyone is so generous, it would be impolite for me to refuse. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, Lin Yi raised his glass and drained it in one gulp. At this moment, a few people suddenly entered the hall. Ignoring the strange looks from the crowd, the leader of the group walked up to Lin Yi with a hearty laugh and said, "Chief Escort Qi, young hero Lin Yi, it's rare for everyone to be in such a good mood. Can you count me in?" This person was the chief escort of the Black Eagle Escort Agency, Zhao Shanning. The few people behind him were also the core members of the Black Eagle Escort Agency. Chief Escort Zhao is a rare guest. Of course, we welcome you with open arms. Qi Mingyuan immediately laughed. He did not have to think too much to guess the purpose of Zhao Shanning and the others' visit. This fellow was here to express his goodwill. The new structure of the South Continent Escort Agency Alliance was very clear. The 5 major escort agencies were led by the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, followed by the Divine Wind Escort Agency, the Great Heaven Escort Agency, the Black Eagle Escort Agency, and the 4 Seas Escort Agency. Among them, the one with the most authority was undoubtedly the new hegemon, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Among the remaining escort agencies, the Divine Wind Escort Agency, the Great Heaven Escort Agency, and the 4 Seas Escort Agency were all old and powerful. Only the Black Eagle Escort Agency was newly promoted. It was difficult for it to do so alone. Once it was ostracized by the other agencies, it might not be able to reap any significant benefits even if it were to become one of the 5 major escort agencies. Under such circumstances, Zhao Shanning had to find a strong ally. In Zhao Shanning's mind, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was the best choice. Firstly, this ally was the new hegemon of the escort agencies, which was definitely worthy of the word strong. Secondly, the other party was also a new force, and there was a big gap between it and the other traditional and powerful forces. If the Heavens Equal Escort Agency wanted to achieve great things, it would definitely need a reliable ally that could coordinate with it. The Black Eagle Escort Agency just happened to fit this position. Therefore, in the eyes of both Qi Mingyuan and Zhao Shanning, the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and the Black Eagle Escort Agency were getting closer. Therefore, Zhao Shanning took advantage of this victory party to come and support them. Qi Mingyuan, on the other hand, welcomed him with a smile and did not refuse anyone. As an ambitious and ruthless person, Zhao Shanning naturally had a cruel and merciless side to him. However, in front of Lin Yi and the others, he appeared to be smooth and slick. With his forthright style, he managed to get closer to everyone with just a few words. However, the person he praised the most during the party was not Qi Mingyuan, the chief escort agency. Instead, it was Lin Yi who had left a deep impression on him. Heroes appreciated each other, and Zhao Shanning could be said to hold Lin Yi in high esteem. If not for his interest in Lin Yi, given his status as the chief escort of the Black Eagle Escort Agency, he would not have been willing to lower himself to personally support the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, even if he wanted to form an alliance with the Heavens Equal Escort Agency. Of course, apart from his admiration for Lin Yi, Zhao Shanning did not know if there was any deeper meaning in his heart. At least, as far as Lin Yi was concerned, he did not believe that an ambitious and ruthless person like Zhao Shanning would be a simple fan of his idol. It would be more accurate to say that Zhao Shanning was trying to kill Lin Yi through flattery. According to his speculation, when Zhao Shanning approached the Heavens Equal Escort Agency this time, it was not as if he did not intend to use the opportunity to drive a wedge between himself and the Qi father and son. The words, "one's achievements are enough to cause a fatal knot in the hearts of both parties." However, the relationship between Lin Yi and the Heavens Equal Escort Agency was not something that outsiders could understand. Chapter 4496. Besides, it was still unknown whether Zhao Shanning had such an intention. Maybe this guy also had a sentimental side, and he simply admired Lin Yi. The celebration ended with both the host and the guest enjoying themselves. After everyone left, Lin Yi noticed that Qi Mingyuan and Zhao Shanning deliberately found a private room to talk by candlelight. Obviously, they wanted to finalize the future cooperation between the two escort agencies. This was a major event that could affect the entire Southland Escort Agency alliance, but it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. As he said, he had no interest in interfering in the affairs of the escort agencies. The Southland Escort Agency Alliance Conference was over, but the escort agencies did not disperse. On the contrary, it was a critical moment for the people in charge of the escort agencies. According to the previous rules, the Southland Escort Agency Alliance Conference would be held tomorrow. At this conference, representatives of hundreds of chambers of commerce in the Southland Sea would participate, and a large number of orders would be finalized at tomorrow's conference. This was a feast to divide the fruits of victory. The higher the ranking of the escort agency, the more benefits it would get. There was no doubt that the Heavens Equal Escort Agency would be the biggest winner. But all of this had nothing to do with Lin Yi. The only thing he had to do now was to conserve his energy and wait for his return to the North Island. Of course, according to Lin Yi's character, he could not stay idle. Even if he only had one night, he would concentrate on cultivation and try to break through. At the same time, in another high-end inn across the street from the inn where the Heavens Equal Escort Agency stayed, in an elegant room, Long Kiba was drinking alone to drown his sorrows. His face was full of depression. He could not help but be depressed in the same room. The night before, he was drinking with Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoyang, imagining the beautiful future of trampling over the Heavens Equal Escort Agency and becoming the hegemon of the escort agency. It had only been a day, but things had changed. Cheng Haonan and Wu Baoyang's identity as evil cultivators had been exposed in public. But now, the second place that his dragon boat escort agency had worked so hard to get was cancelled on the spot, and he even wondered if he could continue to stay in the Southland Escort Agency alliance. Long Kiba felt so melancholic that he wanted to cry, but no tears came out when he thought of the flute-splitting meeting that was going to be held the next day. He was already in a trance. The window opened, and a gust of cold wind blew in. Long Kiba, who was dizzy, couldn't help but shiver. He subconsciously wanted to get up and close the window. However, when he noticed the figure that suddenly appeared beside him, he was shocked. His drunkenness was instantly gone, and he quickly shouted, "Who? What a forgetful person. Chief Escort Long, you don't even recognize me anymore?" Cheng Haonan's appearance finally became clearer in Long Kiba's eyes. "Ah. It's you." Long Kiba couldn't help but be surprised. As the evil cultivator that was exposed by Boundless Sea, Cheng Haonan was definitely a street rat that everyone in Demonling City wanted to beat up. If it was someone else, they would have fled in the middle of the night. She didn't expect him to stay here and even dare to come back to find her. "What? Chief Escort Long, don't tell me you don't welcome me?" Cheng Haonan looked at Long Kiba with a smile that wasn't a smile. He sat down, poured himself a glass of wine, and calmly drank it. "How could that be? Deputy Chief Escort Cheng, you're thinking too much." Long Kiba subconsciously looked out the window again. After confirming that no one noticed, he sat back down. He smiled bitterly at Cheng Haonan and said, "I knew that you were an evil cultivator. A real man doesn't bother with trifles. Righteous and evil cultivators just have different methods. I'm not a hypocrite who sticks to tradition. Now that this bullshit happened, it's all because that old man Boundless Sea didn't keep his word. Why would I blame you? That's good. Chief Escort Long is indeed someone who makes friends. I wasn't wrong about you." Cheng Haonan nodded his head, and then sighed bitterly. Sigh, it was originally going to be a success. It's all Boundless Sea and Ling Yi's fault. It was all for naught. Yeah, Boundless Sea, Ling Yi, it's all because of those two. Speaking of this, Long Kiba gritted his teeth in anger. If it wasn't for Boundless Sea's betrayal, this wouldn't have happened. But if it wasn't for Ling Yi, Deputy Chief Escort Cheng wouldn't have been forced to use that black transformation. That way, at most, Boundless Sea would think that the dead Wu Baoyang was an evil cultivator, and it wouldn't be linked to Deputy Chief Escort Cheng. That's right. In any case, Wu Baoyang is dead. Dead men tell no tales. As long as we don't admit it, it doesn't matter how Boundless Sea accuses us. But after being forced by Ling Yi, I was dragged into this as well. How preposterous. As Cheng Haonan spoke, he drank 3 glasses in a row. With a sinister and cold smile, he said, "Boundless Sea deserves to die. This Ling Yi deserves to die even more. I definitely won't let them go." Oh. Could it be that Deputy Chief Escort Cheng has a brilliant plan? Hearing this, Long Kiba immediately became spirited. Hearing Cheng Haonan's tone, it didn't seem as simple as just complaining. It seemed like he had a plan. Although he wasn't as miserable as Cheng Haonan, in terms of hatred towards Ling Yi and Boundless Sea, Long Kiba wasn't any less than Cheng Haonan. After all, the reason why his dragon boat escort agency had fallen into such a dangerous state was because of these two people. This was the foundation of his entire life's work. Hee, if you want to ask, I really do have a brilliant plan. Cheng Haonan smiled, pretending to be profound. Hurry up and tell me. Long Kiba hurriedly asked impatiently. My brilliant plan is actually very simple. As long as one person takes action, whether it's Ling Yi or Boundless Sea, they will definitely die. He. Cheng Haonan proudly took a sip of wine. Who? Long Kiba's eyes lit up. Wu Baoyang. Cheng Haonan glanced at him and slowly spat out these 3 words. What? Wu Baoyang. Isn't he already dead? Long Kiba was suddenly stunned. In the arena ruins during the day, Wu Baoliang clearly died. His entire body was burnt to a crisp by Ling Yi's berserk fire thousand bursts fist. It was clear that he couldn't be more dead. Could he still be resurrected like that? Long Kiba thought about it and found it hard to believe. However, he wasn't a heretic. Perhaps a heretic's martial art really had this kind of heaven-defying skill that could resurrect the dead. That's right, he really is dead. Sheng Haonan's words dispelled Long Kiba's unrealistic conjecture. He coldly smiled and said, "But even if he's dead, it's still useful. Why do you say that?" Long Kiba was stunned after hearing this. He couldn't help but be confused. What's the use? You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.